All right, guys, it's another Thursday night, and so everyone knows what that means. It's another episode of the Mutant Experience podcast. I am Mutant XP, and tonight I am very happy to have my special guest this evening, Haas from the Lone Star State, Texas. How you doing, Haas?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
So, for those of you who are already in the chat, please let us know how we sound. Please let us know how we look. And tell us if there are any issues. And so also, if you have any questions for either me or my special guest Haas, please write them in the chat, and we will try and get to those questions by the end of the show. So Haas, how's it going, man?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Thank you. Just excited to be out of work for the day. It's been a long week, so I'm pretty thrilled about the weekend coming up.
So on the show, obviously, we're gonna talk a little bit about Haas and how he came up. Not just playing video games, but also in the FGC. Uh, I definitely want to hear some of his stories about Third Strike. For those of you who are new to the game, who are new to the scene, Haas uh, basically came up in the Austin scene of Third Strike, which is legendary when it comes to the glory days of Third Strike. As far as the Third Strike hotspots go, right when the game came out, it was basically Nebraska. Obviously, some of you saw the episode last week with Eat. Then there was Austin, and then obviously SoCal. So definitely, I'm sure you have some day one stories to tell us tonight, right, Haas?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, without a question.
And in about a month's time, right? Just about a month away, a little bit about a month away, we have Texas Showdown. Um, I should have done my homework. I told myself to look this up, Haas, but I completely forgot. But what year is Texas Showdown in now?
Oh my God. I want to say, geez, I think the first one was might have been '01 or '02. So we're looking at like 15 years. Now, here's the thing about Showdown. There was a time when Javier Moreno, the original TO, was running the show. He started Texas Showdown and he continued it starting in 2013. There's a period when it was being run and it was more of like a convention sort of thing with a side of Third Strike or a side of like Major kind of within the convention. And they basically wanted to gain back the whole, Major title back and make it a specifically a tournament that has some vendors and stuff at it, but mainly the purpose of it is tournaments for several games and whatnot. And I came back to Showdown in 13 after I realized that Hobby came back to run the show because before that I wasn't really too interested.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, definitely, and we'll definitely get into the history of Showdown and also what we have planned as far as Third Strike goes this year. For those of you who don't already know, Houston native Katie Alpha is sort of the ringleader for
yep.
3S at Texas Showdown this year and last year, and so we'll definitely talk about that. And then obviously we're gonna get Haas's thoughts on the future of the Third Strike scene and the future of old man games in general. I definitely love to hear what you have to say, Haas, about keeping these scenes alive.
Okay. Well, shoot. I mean, where do you want me to start? At the very beginning, I suppose?
Oh
Or
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I thought you had I thought you were gonna say something
no, I'm just
specific,
agreeing. I'm
but
completely agree.
but
Yeah. Please
so
continue.
so let's go ahead and start at the beginning, man. How did you start playing video games?
I
I
mean,
mean, was it something that you did as a kid, or
well, I mean, I got my first Atari when I was like 3. I played a lot of
Mhm.
Pac-Man, a lot of those games and whatnot. But as far as fighting games go, it all started, I think it was like summer of '91.
Mhm.
I saw like a I didn't really play Street Fighter 2 when it first came out. I think it was like February '91 when it came out in the US. But I didn't really play it until that summer. And I saw people, I think it was like E Honda versus Zangief match, and I was like, this looks kind of. At first, I looked at it, I was like, yeah, this is okay. I don't know about this. I'm not sure about this button mashing that's going on with E Honda or Blanca and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But I was like, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And so, sure enough, I did, and I realized that as more and more people started playing it, like the crowds were crazy. Street Fighter 2 World Warrior, of course, was insane. I mean, in the arcade days for its time, it any hotel or mall or any place would have even gas stations would have like a line of like 15, 20 people playing, waiting to play. So it was big and it was where the hype was at. And actually, for its time, it was really, really good compared to the first Street Fighter. I played the first one, it was horrible. Part two is a lot better. And so eventually, after I played in arcades from like let's say '91 to like '01. So that falls in the timeline of Third Strike when it first came out. When
Hmm.
so basically, I basically played a lot of the mall arcades for many many years. And I went to tournaments for several games in all the arcades. Um,
Hmm.
Back then travel wasn't that common, I guess. So really, it was more of a you know uh, play, be the best at your arcade, and then go take on the best at the other arcade, and then start traveling to, let's say, Houston or like within your state and competing there. But I think really for fighting games, Street Fighter 2 started it, and the MK games, KI, I played them all, and then in tournaments and stuff like that. But I went to Einstein's. Okay, so I had gone to Einstein's Arcade, and Einstein's Arcade is where Third Strike started, right? And
Hmm. Well,
I
well,
went there.
well, sorry to
No, go
cut you
ahead.
off,
Go ahead.
boss, because you're going at breakneck speed here,
Yeah,
and
sorry. Sorry.
I wanna talk more about just just because I know it's a Third Strike podcast, but uh, I love talking about World Warrior more, just as much
Okay.
as some
Great.
other people. But what I caught you say, I caught one of your comments, and you were saying how like they had World Warrior like at a gas station.
Oh yeah.
So just as a quick question, where was the first? Do you remember the first place you played Street Fighter Two?
Yes, it was an arcade called Laser One. It was in
Okay.
Westgate Mall in Southwest Austin.
Uh.
Laser One is one of a kind. It was a arcade inside of a mall that
Mhm.
had a theater inside of it. I remember it had like an ice cream shop across the street, but that arcade was very small. It was about, I want to say it's smaller than Einstein's was. Very hole in the wall, very rectangular, very thin arcade.
Mhm.
Um, but it had everything. It had two Street Fighters, one on projection, one on on an actual normal CRT cab.
Uh huh.
It got all the good games ahead of time. I mean, we had early copies, like beta copies. I wouldn't say beta, but like earlier versions of Mortal Kombat that came out there and whatnot. But that's where I started playing Street Fighter 2, and it was the closest location to where I lived to be
Uh
able
huh.
to play regularly
Yeah, I kind of miss those arcades in the mall, right?
too.
Like whenever like young people. If for those of you who are too young to remember arcades in the mall, just watch Terminator 2. Remember remember
Yeah,
that scene
T2
where
is
the
the furnace, right?
T-1000 goes looking for John Connor?
Oh yeah.
Is it? Doesn't he play Afterburner in that arcade?
I think it was Afterburner. Yeah, it was one of those sit down, moving arcade machines that move with
Oh man.
steering wheel and whatnot. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much how the arcade was. It was very similar. That was a very
Uh-huh.
rectangular arcade as well.
Yeah.
Same sort of layout as Einstein's as well. So that was a very popular layout. One machine on either wall, and in the center for people to walk through in and out. Right. So.
Yeah. And not to you don't have to like tell us exactly how old you were, but like around what age were you when
Oh,
when Street Fighter
I'm
2
pretty
came
old.
out?
I have no shame. I'm pretty old. So I was 11 in '91. So I started competing in tournaments in Street Fighter 2 when I was 11 years old. I played in my
Okay,
first
that
tournament.
ain't old.
I was the only kid that age. I think there were some
Uh-huh.
kids that were like 13, 14, but they didn't really compete. I guess. I guess it was kind of like I don't know if they were nervous or something, but I really
Mhm.
wanted to sit down next to somebody and just take them out that was like twice my age, and
Mhm.
I did. I did. So it was good times.
Mhm. And so and so how did you get into the FGC? Like what game was sort of the gateway for you in terms of the FGC, like competing like competitively in tournaments and stuff?
Third Strike. I mean,
Oh,
given I
really?
played
Okay.
in tournaments before that, right? I played in tournaments
Wow.
before that, but there wasn't really, it was kind of like, you post a sign up at the arcade and you
Mhm.
say, okay, like, okay, it's this date, mark it down on, an actual piece of paper, no cell phones back then. So mark it on a
Mhm.
piece of paper, put it in your wallet or whatever, and be ready for it and show up. But there wasn't really, I mean, everybody was kind of out for themselves back then, everybody was kind of each other's enemy.
Mhm.
There was no sense of like, brotherhood or anything like that back then. It was basically cutthroat. It was all just straight up gangsters and just a bunch of kids. That's all it was. And it was a different time for sure. But Third Strike was definitely the one that kind of did that for us, all of us at Einstein's, because it resurrected the arcade. An arcade that was. And am I cutting too far ahead now, or are
No,
we
no, no,
good?
no. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so basically, Einstein's Arcade was like the arcade in the mid '90s. Problem though is that it was downtown Austin, and getting to Einstein's Arcade back as a 13 or 12-year-old was pretty much impossible unless you had a friend that had an older brother or your parents were heading in that direction or something. So
Buses
uh,
are rough, but
yeah, it was rough. It was rough, and back then, the drag was different. UT campus wasn't the same. It was so packed. There was no regulation against sleeping on the streets. There was no regulation against being, begging for money and stuff like that, and, on university campus. And actually, to tell you the truth, I liked it the way it was, to be honest. But that's a whole different story we can talk about later. But so, anyways, Einstein's Arcade used to be one of the most it was the arcade in Austin. And what happened
mhm,
was, over time, they made some bad decisions, in my opinion. They removed the ST machines too early. They removed a lot of the KI and MK machines too
mhm.
early, and they didn't even focus too much on SF3. I think they had New Generation, and I think they had a Second Impact cab, but even then, there was only a few players that played NG and Second Impact. So when I went there, the first time I showed up at Einstein since like the mid '90s was like I think summer of '98, and all they had was JoJo's and Alpha 3, and I think Soul Calibur 1, maybe not even that. I think it was Soul
Wow.
Edge, and um, and nobody was there. I walked in the arcade. I was depressed. I was like, what the hell is going on here? Like, where is everybody? Like, this arcade is in the middle of one of the biggest schools in the U.S. and yet there's
Mm.
three people in here during like prime time on a weekend. A Friday night, three people in the arcade. What the hell is this shit? I'm sorry, pardon my French. I don't know if cursing's okay. But
Oh yeah, you can curse. It's fine.
Okay, cool. Well, so anyways, I was shocked, and I was like, what the heck's going on here? So I like, okay, I guess Alpha 3 it is, because nobody's playing JoJo's. And basically at the time, Slim X, actually, as a matter of fact, he was working at Einstein's Arcade. And so basically, when I was playing Alpha 3, I saw him do some pretty sick stuff with Viism combos. He was doing, I think, the Daigo combo and some other Akuma combo in the corner. And I was like, hey man, that's pretty cool. Like, yeah, how are you pulling that off, and what do you use to activate to make that work? And he's like, here, you just do this, this, and this. And so we hit it off from there. It was really just me and Slim X chatting a lot, and at the very beginning of the resurrection of Einstein's because of Third Strike. And so we hung out for a good year at Einstein's. I was there about a couple days a week, and we're there one day, and we're like, what the hell? And so he's playing JoJo's, and they're like, hey man, you have to get off the machine. And we're like, okay, what's going on? So they roll the machine out of the arcade onto the drag, and they basically replace, the cart and the disc. And we're like, what the hell? And they put a marquee in there, and we see Chun Li on the marquee, and we're like, whoa, hold on a second. And we realized that it was Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. I think it was June. I want to say it was June 18th. It may have been out before that, but we got it
Mhm.
June 18th, '99. And we watched them roll the machine back into the arcade. So I was there literally at
99 or 99? 99,
99.
right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was June of '99. And we literally watched them roll the machine in. We jumped on it right away, and we had previous like bad taste in our mouth about previous SF3 games. Like NG wasn't all that good, and we were
Actually,
SF2.
I want you to talk a little bit more about that, Haas, because to me personally, when NG first came out, like it didn't it just felt very it felt very unfinished to me,
Yeah, it
right?
feels
It
very
felt
slow.
very beta.
Yeah, yeah, it's very, and that goes for pretty much every Street Fighter that's been released. I mean, look at World Warrior, right? Kind of, it was good for its time, but kind of crappy. You look back at it. Champion
Mhm,
Edition's better. They improved on the tick throw issues and stuff like that and other problems, but yet there was still a lot of crap in that game that was broken. And then Hyper Fighting was really the first true Street Fighter that was actually good, like really good. I mean, ST's great, but second to ST is easily Hyper Fighting, easily,
but
without a doubt. Um,
do you think the stretch from World Warrior to hyper fighting, because and I don't know, you may disagree with me here, but when I play World Warrior and then I play Championship Edition and then I play hyper fighting, I mean, I still feel like I'm playing the same game. It's
it's
just different speeds and different moves.
right,
But to
right.
me, like when you play NG, like NG and Second Impact, they're pretty similar.
Okay.
But then to me, there's this huge sort of left turn with
Yep.
Third Strike.
Absolutely.
Did
100%.
you sort of feel that when you and Slim X got on the, because presumably you guys had played NG and Second Impact before,
Yes, and
right?
we absolutely despised at the time. Looking back, I don't mind Second Impact so much. As I've
Mm,
gone through the SF3, but I really despise those games. Like those games turned me away. I was like, why the hell is this game in the arcade, and why is ST gone? That was the main question, and I felt like that's one of the reasons that Einstein's was dying down because ST brought in so much money, and they got
mm-hmm,
rid of both. They had two cabs, and they got rid of both of them, and there was no excuse for it. I was like, why remove this when it's making tons of money, but yet
mm-hmm,
for something newer that may or may not be as good. I mean, of course, bring the new games in, but like if a game's making you money, keep it. And it
mm-hmm,
was pretty hype. So, anyways, but yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, the games do feel the same. It's the intricate little things like the broken stuff that's in the games that really change the game. In the SF2 series, the small broken nuances and stuff like that. Like tick throws in World Warrior were nearly impossible to get out of. You have
mm-hmm,
magic throws and bugs like that in the game that were pulled out of the game in Champion Edition and whatnot. But in NG, it just felt very slippery. It's the best way I could put it. Like when you try to like do like a crouching forward into something, it feels like there's a push away that happens quicker. Like it feels like everything's very slippery. That's the best way I can explain it. I don't know the exact
mm-hmm,
frame data differences, but I felt like Third Strike was a lot more solid. It felt like a lot more precise. Like it
mm-hmm.
was a finished product, is what it felt like. So, but at first, I mean, even then, I mean, I'll be completely honest. We didn't like Third Strike at first.
Oh
We're set
wow.
in our old ways. We're set in our old ways. We're like, what are these weird characters? What's going on here? Like, why is this game here? Why isn't Tatsu? Why can't you bait Tatsu into uppercut? Why is uppercut not as good?
Uh-huh.
But then again, that's because of lack of understanding. Obviously, right? We were just very opinionated because we were set in our old ways, and we didn't like the game at first. But you know what? As we got to play it more and more, we started digging and coming up with our own tech and other stuff that was like pretty cool. And we're like, you know what? Like this is interesting. We want to maybe explore this some more. And so, it was basically me and Slim X. I'm dead serious. Like me and Slim X, he'd come over to my house, and we would play like nonstop games in general. But when they
Mm-hmm.
finally released, I think it was it W Impact for the Dreamcast? W Impact. It had New Generation and uh, Second Impact on the same disc, right? It was the Japanese import. We paid like
Mm-hmm.
$100 for at the local store at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
we practiced on that like nonstop. We knew that it wasn't going to be the arcade. We knew that it wasn't going to be even Third Strike, but we knew that we could at least learn the mechanics of the game and understand the fundamentals and
Mm-hmm.
try to improve ourselves and whatnot. And so we did. We played pretty much. He would come over pretty much every other day, and we would just train and look at the old Skillsmith Second Impact videos, and we try to practice those and see like how the counters work. How many juggles you can do before you have to super and stuff like that. Just simple things like that. And yeah, that was pretty much all there was to it. And the game grew from there. And um, I met Shin and those guys through Alt Games SF2 shortly after. When they rolled the machine, and I immediately went on Alt Games SF2. I was like, I'm looking for some comp who's down to play some Third Strike.
Mm-hmm.
First person that replied was Shin Chang, and I didn't know his name was pronounced Shin at first. I called him Cien, I think, at first when he went to the arcade. And the first thing he told me was like, "It's Shin," and that's all he said. That's how he talks. And so we played. I mean, I can't tell you how many hours me and him played back to back
Uh-huh.
Akuma mirrors for like I want to say at least 5 hours a day every day of the week. He would skip work from AM. He worked at AMD at the time. He would
Uh-huh.
skip work at AMD to come play Third Strike early, and
Wow.
we'd play from like I want to say 6 p.m. to like almost 2 a.m. in the morning some nights,
Wow.
weekdays
So,
too.
tell me more about that day one though. That day
Okay.
one, that day one Third Strike. So it was just you and Slim
Yep.
at the arcade. So who's the first character that you used in Third Strike? Do you remember?
Well, we were, I mean, of course, Chun Li was the new character, right? So we're like,
Yeah.
oh, we should try Chun, but you know what? We're like, you know what? No, no, no. The first character I actually played, believe it or not, was Q.
Uh,
Yeah, and I was like, this guy kind of reminds me of Darkman. So I was
Dark
like,
Man.
the,
Yeah.
the cheesy movie, the really bad movie Darkman. I was like, this kind of
Mhm.
reminds me of Darkman. This guy's kind of cool, like kind of smooth looking. I was like, let's play some Q. So I played Q, and I think he played maybe like Ryu. I think we played some Shotos. Like we played, of course, I played Akuma as well, of course.
Mhm.
But I think the first character I played was Q. And then
Mhm.
but that was just for fun, just pressing buttons and doing whatever. But like Akuma was the first character I took seriously
Mhm.
and played in tournament basically. So
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I kind of had a similar experience. The first place that I played Third Strike, um, I don't know if I told you this, Haas, but I spent most of my formative years in Southern California,
Right?
and I used to play with my best friend Marvin, aka Mr. Universe from the old Family Fun videos. He was a Yuri in Maine.
Nice.
Um, he was my best man at my wedding, and and we had known each
Cool.
other since fourth grade. But anyway, shout outs to Marvin. I know he's not watching this because he's probably busy playing WoW. But I remember the first time I played Third Strike. It was at this arcade that was attached to a bowling alley in Long Beach, California. It was
Yep.
called Regency Fun Center, and at the time, uh, I played a lot of Alpha 3, and whenever people ask me about the Alpha games, I always just use one word to describe it, and the word is silly. Those games are just
Yeah.
silly. Like to me, it's like they're not bad, they're not good, they're just silly. And sometimes silly is fun, but then there are
Exactly.
times when you get really tired of silly, you
Yes.
know.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
So so like the first character I used was Chun, and interestingly enough, like you, because my friend and I were playing Alpha 3, right, in the Alpha series. You know how different Chun is, right?
Oh yeah. Way
Like
different.
even the Chun in the Alpha series is not that dissimilar from like SF2 Chun. It's
Right.
basically,
Much
but
closer.
now she jumps and she's spinning and shit, and it's like all this like weird stuff.
Yeah. Alpha
And,
three
and,
introduced those high jumps, and I just that was
yeah,
the difference for me. But yeah, go on. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
and I immediately didn't like Third Strike at first. I'm like, dude, this game's weird.
Yeah. Weird characters.
Interestingly enough, I never really liked the third series to begin with. It was my friend Marvin, when NG came out, and I think we were in I forgot, we were like freshmen in high school or something. I don't remember, but like my friend was like, dude, they finally came out with SF3. Because remember, old in the back in the day, right? It was always, when is Street Fighter 3 gonna drop? When is Street Fighter 3 gonna
Yep.
drop?
That's true.
Right? It was always those rumors. Every April Fool's joke. It was like, when does
Yep.
SF3 come out? And then SF3 finally comes out, and I just never, like you said, right? It just didn't feel polished. It felt kind of clunky to me. It kind of felt sort of like a poor attempt at like the Neo Geo style type fighting game.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
It felt kind of World Heroes ish, almost.
Got
You
that
know,
Puma tech.
yeah. But anyway, it was just funny that you say that you didn't like Third Strike at first, because I didn't either, and then I just didn't play the game for like 3 years until I went to college at UC Irvine, and then I started, and then I saw a lot of people playing it. But anyway, so day one, you and Slim X, you get on the cab. What kind of cab did you have? Was it like a showcase?
It was
Was
a
it like
showcase,
a
yeah.
uh,
Yeah, we had showcase cabs throughout
and
the
so
whole life of
yeah.
Einstein's.
So that first day, how many hours do you think you played Third Strike?
You know,
Or
I
was it just try the game and then?
we played a lot. Like we
Uh-huh.
we're like, you know what? Like we didn't like it at first, but we're like, you know what? And even after weeks, I still kind of didn't like it. I mean,
Yeah.
even but I
Oh, and
still
here's
wanted to
another.
keep
Here,
grinding it.
sorry, but here's another
You're good.
important question. How much was Third Strike when they first wheeled it in there?
How
Was it
much
a
was it?
quarter? Was it a
Oh, it was
quarter or
quarter.
was it 50 cents?
No, actually, it's a good question. That's actually a really good question because Einstein's Arcade was notorious, even for games like Top Skater,
Uh
to be
huh.
1 quarter.
Uh
I want to say, you know what? I want to say that 3S was 2 quarters to start, one to continue. I'm pretty sure it
yeah.
was. And then
Yeah.
they toned it down once they got two machines. They toned it
Hmm.
down to one each. Um,
Okay. All right. So yeah. So you played the game, didn't really like it, and but then you eventually just kind of started, sort of warming up to the game. I guess, is that what you're saying?
yeah, I mean the thing is, like, for some reason it was just like this weird, like, I don't know how to explain it, like this weird cohesion. Like it was like the mix of like just going back. I mean, keep in mind the arcade was dead. Even when Third Strike came out, the arcade was dead. Nobody was there. It was just
Hmm.
like when Shin came along, it was just like me, Shin, Slimex, Peter Ong, maybe Alan, and maybe Crandall, who was like the Don King of our time. He was like the true commentator. He's in prison now, but he was like the commentator that was
Oh.
hyping everybody up, and he's the reason that a lot of us kept going back to Einstein's
Hmm.
because he had the kind of the bullshit and the charisma that we loved, you
Mhm.
know. And so like every day, like we are like, you know what, like this guy, even though his arcade's dead, this guy's kind of funny. I'm gonna come back and see what this guy has to say tomorrow, you know. And so he was actually a big part of it. And honestly, I hate to say this, and I mean maybe some people actually no, they'll agree with me. He was the reason. He was the glue that brought us all together for Third Strike.
Uh-huh.
He was the one that hyped it up for all of us, that made it more special than we thought it was at the time. And he was an Alex player actually. And the reason I play Alex now is because of him. So because once he went to prison, then we had no Alexes anymore. I was like, well, I'll pick him up and see what happens.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's rough.
yeah, he was already on his third felony. His third felony was the one that put him
Oh,
in prison. So I could go into that, but that's a whole different
yeah.
story. It's kind of off tangent, but
So how is it in Texas? Like third felony, it's done. They just throw away the key, or
I think it's 25 to life. I think, but for some
man,
reason
it's rough.
he's in for I think 40 something years.
40 years?
Yeah, because the thing is,
Damn.
I looked him up online on Google, right?
No
And I saw
parole? No parole? No chance of
he
parole?
here's the thing. Here's the thing. He's got no nonviolent crimes. Okay, all the crimes that he's done, nonviolent, no
Man.
weapons. Okay, no weapons, no nothing on him. Right? No drugs, no weapons. Right? But yet he's got 40 something years for a third felony. But yet you've got rapists in the same state right here that get off with that shit in like 3 months. Like, where's the logic in that?
Yeah. I
Right? Where's the
mean,
logic? I mean, he has not laid a hand on anybody. If anything, we felt safer with him around. But he was, a little bit shady when it came to like, stealing laptops and stuff like that. But as far as
mhm,
like the community, he was like the person that was like he was our true commentator. He was the kind of like the I wouldn't say coach, but he was the one that kind of egged on people to kind of get better and stuff. And really, if he wasn't there, I'm pretty sure it would have died. And actually, after he went to prison, the arcade did kind of die off a bit.
mhm,
So really, he was the person that kind of brought it all together for us.
mhm.
That combination of him plus the new game Third Strike plus it being UT campus with a bunch of students, it just kind of slowly one person would come in and then they would meet some people. We were very friendly. We were very open-minded with having more people play. We'd tell them, hey, we learned this yesterday. It's a new game, but don't do this because that's not good to do. Try this instead. There was no frame data back then, at least on our end. So we were just like, if you use
Those.
this a bit earlier in this situation, at this spacing, then you won't have to worry about that punish, etc. So we would, and people would be like, oh, "That's cool, man. I appreciate it," and they would be glued because they were happy that people were helping each other out, and we were kind of like, very open-minded about giving tech away, and because the more tech we share, the better we get as ourselves, right? Or
Mhm.
we get ourselves. So yeah, just kind of slowly built and built and built to where our tournaments would have like 30 something people. I mean, it was crazy, man. Like it was, and then we would have people sitting on top of the cabs
So
during the tournaments.
so how long before Third Strike first came to Einstein's did you start having regular tournaments? Like, was it pretty quick? Because I know you had said that you had, hooked up with Shen, and then you guys started playing a lot. And so roughly how long did it
About a
take for
month.
you guys? For about a
About a
month?
month. Yeah. So
About a month. Okay.
yeah, what happened was Javier Moreno, actually, same guy throwing Texas Showdown, same
Mhm,
TO that we're talking about for Showdown here.
mhm,
We were talking about some stuff on the news groups, All Games SF2, and the
mhm,
Capcom channel on IRC. And Javi's like, Austin ain't shit. Houston's where it's at. We're gonna take you guys down. Come to our turf and play on our cabs, and we'll take you out. And we're like, oh, really? Okay, we'll see what happens. Because they were the kings. They reigned supreme when it came to Second Impact. They reigned supreme when it came to New Generation. The only person that we had that was really good at Second Impact or NG was BBH. BBH and Fu. Fu was the main guy that was really good. And actually, Shin played Second Impact, but he wasn't that good at all. He was actually really bad. They called him, I think, Sweater Boy or something like that back then, because he used to wear long sleeve shirts in the summer heat.
Sweater
But
boy.
yeah, I mean that wasn't my nickname. It was Peter Ong was the guy that named him that, and Peter Ong was more of a he was the first real troll I've ever experienced in my life. I think a real life troll. He would basically do things like just hit Fierce Punch all day with Chun Li just to piss you off. He
Uh-huh.
wouldn't use anything else, and he would just not even move the stick and just press Fierce Punch and be like, "This game sucks. This game's broken. I'm just gonna piss you off just to piss you off," sort of thing. He did it just to get kicks. But yeah, so basically Javier was talking smack on All Games SF2, and it wasn't like anything too brutal. It was just like, hey, we're better than you. Let's play. Let's have an Austin versus Houston tournament. And we're like, okay, bring it. So we basically found out what Juan and Javier and those guys played. Javier's Chun, Juan was a Necro Ibuki player. And we basically said, okay, we sat down on the stools they had. They were like, okay, what can we do to prepare for this tournament? What do we have that they don't have? Do we have some information, some tech that they don't have that we can pull out at the tournament? And so we did. We had a ton of it. I mean, from all the stuff that me and SlimX researched and discovered on week one and week two, uh, we shared all that with Shin and everybody else that was playing in the tournament. Fu, I think Larry was there. Jack Lee, the first like Ibuki, like the first really recognized Ibuki in the U.S. It was good times, and so basically we went over there and we Adam, the guy who's in prison I mentioned earlier, the guy that's kind of like our Don King,
Hmm.
he was down there and he was basically spouting off, and those guys just loved him. They absolutely loved it, and they were cool with us too. Like they were it was very friendly, like relationship. Like we thought that we're going to their turf. It's going to be like old times, like mid '90s, early '90s. Nobody talks to each other. It's just like cold blood, like cutthroat. But it wasn't like that at all. It was actually very, very inviting. They were really cool. Um, Javier was still salty as hell, man. He was still like the type to go in on us. He's the one that kind of instigated the whole thing over the news groups, and really it was like, I mean, shoot, it was July it was July 1999 when we played in Houston at Sharpstown Mall, and we won. Shin took first. I think Juan got second. Who got third? I think I got sixth. I got sixth at that tournament, out of like I think it's like 32 people, 34 people. I can't
Hmm.
remember, but it was good. It was good times, and so basically I talked to Slim X about it. He was working at Einstein's at the time. We're like, okay, hey dude, like let's go ahead and get an Einstein's tournament going. So I'll talk to Hobby. I'll contact him through the Capcom channel and IRC, and we'll just kind of set up another tournament. And so I think 2 months later, I think it was, we set up our second tournament.
Hmm.
And they came to our turf this time, and they liked our cabs better. We had, only one cab at the time, but they liked the fact that our sticks were in better shape than theirs and stuff like that. So they came up, and I remember it was actually kind of funny because when they came up to Austin, like you have to understand, like the people that were on UT campus, they're students, right? Typical students, kind of clean cut, just in general. The Austin's kind of weird in general, but like the students that would come in there are very clean cut, very just kind of plain. And then you have these guys come in with like these flannels with like the button up, the button the top, with the flannel out. They have the tears
Hmm.
tattooed on their face. They got the hardcore, braided hair in the back, shaved heads, straight up cholos, man, coming in the arcade, and they looked hardcore, like really hardcore. And so all the kids, it was funny watching. I already knew these guys from the previous tournament, so we're all cool. But like all the people that didn't see them or meet them before, they're all like, "Oh God, are we gonna be safe here? Are we okay?" And it was so funny because they were so scared, and I couldn't stop laughing. But they were cool as shit, man. Those guys were the real deal. They were really good players, and really it just made us all better in general. Like the rivalry between Houston and Austin was huge,
Hmm.
and it's come back again. I mean, and it's what started everything. I mean, I'm pretty sure that like I don't think anybody was really taking the game seriously back then except for Texas, right? I traveled to the West Coast. I went to Sunnyvale Golfland summer of 2000,
Hmm.
and I went to try to find some competition there, and like one guy, I think his name is Quincy. He was like, "Hey man, like, so you play Third Strike? You want to play?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Is John Choi here?" Because I know John Choi plays at Sunnyvale Golfland, and like,
Uh-huh.
well, if you want to play John Choi, you have to beat me 10 times. And I was like, and I heard this. It's funny you mentioned this because I heard the same thing on the Eat stream last week, right? But I don't know what it is with the West Coast and like boss battle stuff, but like it was a beat me 10 times and you can get John Choi's number. I'll give you his direct phone number. I'm like, okay, no problem. So I beat him 10-0, and I got John. I was with family, and I was in San Francisco by that point. I had to leave,
Hmm.
and I was able to pick me up. But I'm pretty sure that our tech was so ahead of the West Coast at the time that we could have, even our worst players could have taken anybody at that arcade at the time. At the time.
So
So
that's actually something that I think this would be a good time for a break, Haas, because so basically what happened in Third Strike in Texas. I guess what you're telling me is that as you guys were learning the game, you kind of started with a kind of in-state rivalry, Austin versus
absolutely.
Houston, and in the process of you know learning the game, you guys made each other better. And so when we get back from the break, I want to talk a little bit about interstate rivalry because you kind of brought it up already. That you had
Hmm.
went to Sunnyvale in 2000. Um, you probably went to the wrong place in Cali.
I think so. I think so. I
um,
mean, that's
but
very
it's
clear.
it's understandable because Sunnyvale has always been the capital of Street Fighter in
Right.
California, because that's kind of, you know, at an old on an old House of Strike show, we had Joe Flores, aka CPS4, on the show, and he's a longtime FGC member from the NorCal region, and he was telling us a really cool story about how he got Third Strike in beta. How they were able
Hmm.
to play Third Strike like beta in Sunnyvale, because a lot of the test Street Fighters, were available in Sunnyvale. That's how they would sort of get players to test it. But when we come back from break, I want to talk a little bit about how this sort of interstate rivalry kind of morphed into a, or how this in-state rivalry sort of morphed into an interstate rivalry, and kind of your experiences, traveling, and just your, just kind of what you saw, from your perspective in terms of some of the rivalries that started to emerge in the early 2000s. Um,
Okay.
and
Sounds good.
so let's go ahead and take a short break. And when we come back, we'll have more with Haas. So don't go anywhere, guys. Alright, guys, this is Mutant XP back with the Mutant Experience episode 8. And tonight's podcast, we have special guest Haas from Texas. And so, for those of you just joining us, Haas is in the middle of story time here, telling us about the rich history of Third Strike in the Lone Star State. And so, before we went on break, Haas, you had talked a little bit about, uh, you know, Third Strike getting introduced, to the Texas players, and how the sort of initial rivalry was sort of in state, between Austin and Houston. And so now I want you to tell me a little bit about what you know about the interstate uh, rivalry. In terms of Cali versus Texas, versus well, I don't really know if Texas really had much of a rivalry with Nebraska. But definitely the main one was SoCal, Texas, right? As far as Third Strike goes.
Yeah, and a lot of that rivalry was more, I guess, it fermented more when I had basically stopped going to arcades and had focused on, college. And
Mm.
I had taken a 10-year break after like '01 to 2011. I didn't play it at all in
Oh wow.
arcades.
Okay.
It was a long time. I'd focused on life, school, graduating, that sort of thing, and
Uh huh.
um, so I missed out. But my source was still Slim X. Slim X had he had moved around, and worked for different gaming magazines and stuff like that. But like
Uh
he was still there. He worked there after my time, and so did Sin. Sin was the one player he was the first Texas UN player, actually, first Texas UN,
huh.
and he's been there since the very beginning. And he knows everybody from every generation of Austin First Strike,
Uh huh.
and he would fill me in. And he's a close friend of mine, so we'd spend time like we'd hang out like every other weekend or something like that. So you'd be like, hey, guess who got good? And you won't believe who's placing at Evo and whatnot. And I was like, wow, it's crazy. And so he would give me all the detailed info and whatnot. So he was basically my kind of like my ear to what was going on in the scene.
Uh huh.
And but yeah, I mean, as far as international stuff goes, I know that like you mentioned on break before. Uh, I didn't know. I forgot that Vi had won that one you had mentioned to me, and that's I thought Shin was undefeated until SBO, but I guess I'm wrong. I guess I wasn't there before though. I
Uh
missed
huh.
that one. So I think Slim X was there though.
Uh huh.
But I missed that one for sure. I
And,
wasn't in it before.
and actually, for those of you who are like super interested in really, really, really old Third Strike, shout outs to Psycho Chronic. Brett Navarro, aka Psycho Rarity. I think that's the name of his YouTube channel. Uh, old school player, still travels, takes the mega bus to go to majors, cosplays. Brett's a really cool guy. But before TheShend, because when people think Third Strike videos, automatically people think TheShend, right? But it wasn't even him who started this. It was really Brett. It was really Psychochronic, because he was the one who really started sort of collecting FGC videos, and he has a lot of really old Third Strike footage on his channel. I'm gonna go ahead and just type in the name of his channel in the chat. So basically, it's Psycho Rarity. Um, and so for any of you who want to like check out, really old school FGC videos, I'm talking about the stuff that was on VHSs, right? The stuff
Yeah,
that you could only get physically. You know, uh, Brett, he's really the lifesaver because those things have a lifespan, and for him to like, he was really the first one to start like digitizing them and making sure that they last. But for those of you who are interested in really really old Third Strike, go to his channel. And I thought it'd be really neat since you say you don't remember the match. Uh, Haas. I thought maybe we could watch some of the grand finals between Shin and Alex Valle.
yes. Let's watch that.
You
Yeah,
down
I
with
want
you
to see
down
it.
for that? So
Yeah, absolutely.
there's a lot of videos on Psychochronic's channel, from before between Shen and Alex. And I'm not really sure what the order is. But here's one video, and so let me just go ahead and fire it up here, and then we can go ahead and watch it. Okay. So apparently, I think in grand finals, Shen opted to go with Yang,
What the hell? Wait a second. Hold on a second. I had never seen this before. Like he had never played this character in the arcade. I can
and
guarantee you, I was there every day.
and Valle decided to use Chun. Not really sure about the uh the history behind this video, but let me go ahead and make it a little bigger here.
It's
So
so
yeah,
weird watching
that's
Shin play Yang. It's weird.
that. This is now. Remember, guys, this is a year. This isn't even a year after America has gotten the game. So,
Right.
let's keep the trolling and the negativity to a minimum, guys. Let's have some perspective here, right? That's what I don't understand about the FGC. That's what I don't understand about the FGC, Haas. You don't see like LeBron James going on Twitter and throwing shade at George Mikan. You know what I mean? Like, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't really. Well, why is the FGC different? I mean,
Oh man.
you know.
I don't know.
But anyway, this is I know you're sort of mesmerized by this video because you don't remember ever seeing it.
No, he must have been training this on Dreamcast without our knowing because I don't remember him ever playing Yang ever in the history of him playing. I must have played hundreds of hours against Shin. Not
Uh-huh.
one time did he ever pick Yang. Not once.
But you know what's so impressive about Shin's Yang is that he sort of understood what the meter was for. He understood that hey, SA2 by itself is kind of shitty, and that a taunt too at the end.
That was common. We Austin just
Uh-huh.
taunted not as disrespect back then. We would actually just throw him out just for the hell of it. As a whole thing at
Really?
the end of the round. Had no maybe I mean we never know with Shin. Shin might have been trying to disrespect there.
Uh-huh.
You can never guess what he's thinking.
All right. So that was one round, and that was one game, and here's the next game here. So I think Shen took that first game, right?
Yep.
And I love the jab colors, man. I love nobody uses the OG colors. Everyone's got to use OG colors. Look at that,
And
Red Perry in 2000.
yep.
All right, nobody should throw shade at my ever.
No, he's a great player,
that
man.
red,
He's still
and
doing
there's no
well.
way that Red Perry could have been accidental, right? No way. I mean, maybe, but it just wouldn't make sense for him to press forward after blocking the low forward.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
What would you do at that
yeah,
range by tapping forward and hitting something?
yeah. Wow, can't believe this footage is like 17 years old.
I know. Believe it or not, that VHS-C recording is not the worst. I've seen much worse
Yeah,
from
this is
that
pretty
time.
good. And everyone in the chat, feel free to, chime in, share your comments about this video.
Because at this point, I was the only person playing Yang in the arcade.
Oh, okay.
I was the Yang main at the arcade,
Uh-huh.
Einstein's arcade at the time. So I don't know. I can tell you for a fact, he played Yun, he played Akuma. That was
Yeah.
it.
It doesn't look like Valle knows how to hit confirm though,
Hmm.
but that obviously would come later.
You think back then, Chuns were more concerned with hitting fierce punch and like back fierce.
Oh, look how much damage he's doing. I distinctly remember. I think there was like an SRK feud or a debate surrounding this video. You know, I don't quite remember, but I distinctly remember something like that. Yeah, Shin's Yang is still better than my Yang. That's what Katie says.
Shin just he's just the way he thinks is just different. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
He's got that little bit of oomph.
But to me, these videos are so fascinating, Haas, because the game is so young, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
and the mindset is different because for the new players, right? Season 1, Season 2, Street Fighter 5, like you don't even give the players time. You know, it's like
Yeah,
you give them about like a year, and then the game changes. So like if you know that the game is gonna change, that's gonna alter your approach. You know what I mean?
yeah. How much time do I want to invest in this character? How much like do I want to really stick
Huh?
with this guy? Like even if you're a character loyalist, like will my character be worse than what he already is right now if he's already not that good?
Yeah.
For his time. It's like those sort of questions arise.
And I think that's the thing that I dislike the most about real games, about newer games.
Hmm.
Um, it just throws character loyalty out the window, sort of.
It really does. It does, and I think that yeah, it just there's a lot of stuff that is not working as intended in fighting games that turns out to be awesome tech.
Hmm.
Like not to stray away from Third Strike at all, but like Alex had this tech in SF5 where he would actually do a blocked chop, right?
Hmm.
And after the chop, he had one frame to even on block to cancel it into a suplex. And
Hmm.
basically, I mean, it was like they patched it out right away. I mean, the next patch that's coming out in April is patching that out completely. And
Hmm.
the thing is, like, I feel like that tech isn't too detrimental to making him that much better of a player, considering
Hmm.
he's like kind of like mid low anyways in
Hmm.
SF5. So like I figured that sort of intricate tech makes the game more fun. It's like, well, do I want to take the risk? Like it's the last bit of the round.
Hmm.
He's blocking, and there's no way to chip except for if I have super or critical art. So do I
Hmm.
want to try this tech and risk the one frame timing, or do I want to just block?
Oh my
And so
gosh.
like they take that out of the game.
Uh-huh.
Oh man, that was close. That was shins too. But the thing is, like they take that stuff out of the game, and I think that's in my opinion, that's not game breaking because it's not like you're plinking your way to get the one frame link. It's not like you're doing an option select to
Hmm.
really make it safe. It's like it's actual like raw tech that I don't I just it's in my opinion I guess, but like I disagree with patching that sort of stuff out of a game if it's within a reasonable balance, I guess.
Yeah, these red parries are definitely not accidental.
No, 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 no,
That was
not
the
in the
third
least.
red parry that Valle did.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
and back to what you were saying before, Haas, like how this is pre-frame data. It's like you see things that normally you could punish, but obviously it's so new, and you can only rely on the eye of the tiger. You know what I mean?
right.
Like, and so like for example, Alex would use crouching roundhouse, and you can punish that with Yang standing short EX slash. But obviously, it's a work in progress. They're not gonna, you gotta sort of, it's with reps. No one has frame data and stuff like that. So yeah, so here's a. So I wasn't really paying attention. I think I'm not sure what the score was. I think it's like 2-2 or something. But I'm just totally, I don't know if about you, Haas, but I'm totally enjoying watching this because
Oh, absolutely.
this is
It's
so,
great.
yeah. Um, but yeah, you seem pretty shocked because you don't remember Xian ever using
No,
Yang.
no. I mean, unless there was some sort of secret lab
Uh
that there was going on where he trained on Dreamcast Third Strike, like in his wherever he practiced, like at his house or something like that. That's
huh.
This is not something that he was doing at Einstein's. I mean, he might have. I mean, during the daytime before I would come in, I'd see him there sometimes. There's a
Uh huh.
chance that he would play Yang here and there, but not like this. Not like
Yeah.
tournament. Not like regular play. It was very like it was straight up Akuma, straight up Yun.
Oh, what?
Whoa!
What?
Just did it.
Wow.
Was that
Really?
enough to chip? I can't tell. I
No,
don't
it
remember.
wasn't. Nearly
Okay,
no, was it?
man.
Wow, Vi. That was a Miss Chloe moment right there. Um. All right, let me just play the next one. So remember, guys, if you're interested in watching these videos again, go to Psycho Chronic's channel, Psycho Rarity. I'll type it into the chat again, and show Psycho Chronic some love. He was the Shen before the Shen before the Shen started. Um, but yeah, I haven't really been keeping score. What I do know is that Shen switches though. He switches to I think he switches to Goki
Okay, yeah, that
in
sounds more like it.
in the final game. I think this is 4 out of 7. Actually, I think this is best of 7. But
That's a pretty long grand finals, right? I mean, is
see,
that
these are just fundamentals, Haas. Vi knows the good buttons.
he does. He does.
Third strike is timeless, man. Like, at least that's what I think. He
It
just
is.
find your good buttons, figure out what works and what doesn't. But obviously, the tech hasn't been discovered yet. Oh my God, he's so consistent with those parries.
And it was such a brave pair. I mean, if he had dropped that, he's on the ground again in the corner
Yeah,
against another EX mix-up, right? I
yeah,
mean, that's just brave. You got to respect the cojones on this guy
yeah.
for doing that.
So how come there wasn't a whole lot of Chun in Austin? Hoss? I mean, that's a
You
good
know,
question because she's
you
super
know,
OP. I mean, she's got 2 meters. Like, no one really decided to. I mean, Fubar later, but he's like later, right? Like he's like a few years after you first got Third Strike, right?
did he just crouching jab in a number 2 super?
Yeah, he did.
You see the scaling on that shit?
Yeah.
It's like it scales so shitty anyways. It was like even worse. Oh my
Oh
god.
my God,
Okay,
what's gonna
but yeah.
happen here? What's gonna happen here?
Oh man.
Oh yeah, well,
Okay, that
well.
okay. But yeah, sorry. Ask the same question again. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
I
but
didn't mean
how?
to-
You had mentioned that there weren't a whole lot of Chuns in Texas, but why not?
Honestly, I think what it was is when Peter played Chun at the beginning, he was like showing how at the time how broken it was and how you could just hit fierce punch all day and win. And I think that I think honestly, he spread a negative connotation with the character. I guess I'm not saying that people are like easily swayed and affected by that, but I
Hmm.
think that people just didn't feel like it was a fun character to play. It's like okay, like it just she's very I don't know. I mean, there's
Yeah.
there's technical stuff to her, but she's very boring by compared to some other characters in the cast, right?
Hmm.
So people wanted to play to have fun and not so much to win with that sort of
Hmm.
win that way. I guess people had more pride. They at the time they didn't really care for winning the easy way.
Yeah.
They wanted a challenge.
So here's Shen using a more familiar character to Third Strike fans, which is Goki. Um, but both Yang and Goki, man, they bleed. And let's see how this match unfolds here. That was accidental red parry. That had to have been.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely was. See, I
So
think Shin's doing a great job of like he's staying airborne a lot. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And he's
yeah,
not. She doesn't have meter, and he's not getting hit by her like the damage she can put out on the ground. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So now he's a little bit more careful. He's not.
yeah,
He's jumping away. He's not really. Well, he is going in
yeah.
actually.
Javi's like Chun was boring in all caps. That's why no one played her. Mm. Oh my gosh.
Actually, you know what? I take that back. Remember, I did mention Javier Moreno was a Chun main back then,
Mm.
but then again, that was Houston, and that wasn't really an Austin thing. So I
Mm.
mean, I don't know. But even then, it was still very very scary. So we had one Chun at I
Mm.
think at the first tournament, and we had zero.
Oh, the walk back.
Uh,
That shimmy, the oldest shimmy in record.
yep. Street
That,
Fighter Five got
this is one
introduced
of
to
this
me.
is one of the oldest shimmies ever recorded. Whoa, what was that?
Shin, I'm surprised he always gets his way with demons.
I
That
rem
was
I remember watching this video. Then they switched to some live action. You'll see a footage of Valle, when he was 100 pounds soaking wet, and Shin. Wow.
the wife beater going
Yeah.
on.
And yeah, that was it. Wow, that was
Interesting.
that was a great blast from the past, Haas.
I,
That was
honestly, I don't think I've ever seen that.
really wow.
I don't think I have. No.
Yeah. So now that we've watched a little bit of Shan versus Valle, you said that you kind of left Third Strike right when like the interstate stuff was happening.
Yeah, around that time, I had just finished my work at community college in Austin, and I had moved to San Marcos to pursue my major. And so basically, that was at least anywhere between 45-minute drive, depending on traffic, could be an hour to Austin.
Hmm.
And the thing is, like I my classes, well, I mean, I would study on average about 6 hours a day. Okay, so like with that much studying, there's no way in hell I could fit Third Strike the way I was doing,
Hmm.
And I lived 5 minutes from Einstein's back when I was living there. When I lived in
Hmm.
Austin, I was 5 minutes away from the arcade, maybe 10 tops.
Hmm.
Now it's like an hour away. I've got 6 hours studying a night at least, minimum like 2 3 hours a night.
Hmm.
Um, and I was like, you know what? I've been cooped up, running the Diablo 2 ladder and running the Third Strike. I was doing both simultaneously, the
Hmm.
Diablo ladder and I made a lot of money on my character, by the way, back then. But Diablo ladder and Third Strike arcade scene, and I was basically not. I didn't have any social life outside of that, and I realized that it was time to, with this college change and the university change, it's time to just be more one with people, I guess, and kind of. I mean, even that. And here's the thing: that town had nothing that was good arcade wise. They had a diversions that had like a broken 2i machine,
Hmm.
Second Impact, and it had MVC1, and like that was it. It was like crap. So
That's
like we didn't have anything down there.
that's the real struggle.
It was a real struggle, and it was actually kind of depressing because you're sitting there and you're like wondering like, damn, like I could be getting better at this game. I could be training. I'd be trained normally. Like I would love to have uh, I don't know, maybe had a scene down in San Marcos, but nobody cared. And, you know, not everybody had a Dreamcast, I guess, at the time. And so it was just a big mess. It was just, it was a sad time for me, but it was also a good time, to kind of get that stuff over with and move on. And yeah, I mean, I missed out on a lot of good stuff. I missed out on a lot of the Evos. I missed out on a lot of the stuff that like when Mopreme, yeah, for instance, Mopreme, like he was starting around the time that I had stopped, right?
Hmm.
When I was went out to San Marcos, and he he rose so quickly. Like I think me and a few other guys, like we were all the same age. At least like I want to say 8 or 9 of us basically took off and went to college, and so basically the new generation of Third Strike players, like you had Mopreme was the first of his generation, and then you had Fubar came after. I think his group was like him, Fubar, and a couple other guys. And then so basically those guys were holding it down in that middle time period, that dead time that I was not playing. And
Hmm.
then you had like guys like Marcus, the Ibuki player, and those guys, which were about a few years after that. And so basically it was like different generations of players, and it really the determinant factor of the generations of Third Strike players was when you finish college, basically. So
Yeah.
like once they finish college, they're like, okay, I'm going back to my family in California, or I'm going back to East Coast, or I'm going to back to China, to go live there again. And so
Uh-huh.
basically people would just leave. I mean, it was like, so basically it wasn't like we all just decided, hey, like we're tired of Third Strike. It was more of like a depressing like reality, like damn, we're getting older. It's time to move on with our lives. But we wish we had an arcade that was still as good as Einstein's where we live, but we don't.
Hmm.
So it's one of those things. So
Yeah, it's because really, that lull that you talk about, when you move to San Marcos, I mean, that's kind of when I came up, you know, like, I like I told you, I played Third Strike when it first came out, but I didn't like it, and then it wasn't until like 2000, late 2002, 2003, that I started playing it, that I picked it up again and I started playing seriously. But that was kind of like when, like, I remember the earliest videos that I used to watch were videos by Slim X, you know,
yeah,
the Slim
yep,
X combo videos.
yep.
And to me it was like, Slim X made the videos that were cool, and then Mopri made the videos that were useful.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah.
I feel like,
And
something that you Texas players don't get a lot of credit for is, you were really one of the first, because like you were mentioning earlier in the podcast, Haas, the old FGC was very kind of secretive about their tech. Everyone was kind of, looking out for themselves, and they were just sort of, it was sort of cutthroat. I think that was the word you used. But to me, whenever I saw like videos like about Third Strike stuff, like it was never SoCal putting it out. It was never New York putting it out. It was never, Nebraska putting it out. It was Texas.
oh yeah,
Slim X with his combo videos, Mopreme with his tutorials. I remember he had that link video where he showed all the
yes.
different links you could do in Third Strike.
Hmm.
And obviously you can't speak for those guys, obviously, but why do you think those type of videos, rather than hide the tech, they were trying to sort of put the tech out there. Why do you think it came from your state and your scene?
Well, I think because we were just so engraved into the game. Like I think what happened was, we weren't. I guess I didn't mean to put it in a too secretive way, but like the things that we would pull out would be stuff that people would pull out like in the Evo. You know what I mean? It's not like they're hiding the general tech,
Mhm.
just that there's a setup that nobody knows about yet,
Mhm.
and we're pulling it off, and we're going to pull it off in tournament. But like I think the reason they shared the information is that, well, I think the first person to really pioneer it first and foremost was Slimex because he's the one that translated all the Japanese documents for
Mhm.
us. He was the first. He was the very, very first person to share all the tech.
Mhm.
The Genai Jin tech was Slimex's, I believe. And I believe
We
okay, so
we got to have
you
Slim on a podcast, man. I
yeah,
mean,
he's got I mean he's got all sorts of stuff, and his technical background is good in every fighting game that he plays. He's a library of information, and the thing is, like,
maybe we can have a live podcast. A Texas
Yeah, I
showdown
mean,
with if he's willing to come out.
yeah, that would be great. I mean,
Yeah.
he's Slim X is always down for that sort of thing. I mean, I don't want to again, I don't want to speak for him, but like he went through the trouble of like basically translating all the Japanese
Hmm.
text that he found on the websites at the time, the Japanese websites, and he basically showed us Kara throws are Slim X's translation, Urian's tackle tackle headbutt, all that stuff was Slim X's translation for us. I think some of the Gaijin tech, I think maybe that was Mopreme. I can't remember if it was Slim X or Mopreme, but like they both worked together, and actually him and Slim X would constantly work with each other on certain things. Like when Mopreme went to Japan and came back,
Hmm.
one of the first people he talked to was Slim X about some of the tech that he found, and they would work together, and it was very cohesive, like very inviting. Like it was. See, the thing is, like the way the guys looked at it was that it's okay to keep some tech for like let's say last minute stuff for like a tournament, but like as a general whole, as things were growing and getting bigger, and it wasn't just arcade versus arcade in the states anymore. It was like you said, international versus or I mean just within the U.S. versus each other, and basically they just wanted to share the data. I mean, they're the types of guys that that would be willing to do
Hello. I think
because they
we.
share their information.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, sorry,
You cut out a little bit there. Sorry.
sorry. It might have been my maybe Time Warner's doing some crazy stuff. But yeah, so yeah, Moprim and Slimex are the type of guys that are willing to share that information, and they're very good about passing the tech around. Like even in our first two tournaments, like when we pulled out something crazy, the guys in the tournament would be like, "Hey, like what is that?" And we would actually explain it to them, like in the tournament. Like this is what we're doing. This is how you beat it.
Hmm.
And we would tell them in the tournament how to beat the setup. And so it was up to them to adjust. But if you think about it, giving them the tech in the tournament is also part of the meta, right? It's like, are they going to adjust to it? Should I use it now? Stuff like that. So,
Hmm.
but the thing is, like, really, just their personalities. What it comes down to, we had the right people that delved into it deeper than others. They weren't too proud. They were willing to share. They're just good human beings. And really nice stand-up dudes. So I mean, I think it has a lot to do with that combination of the type of person they were, the experience they had, the fact that things were growing. They realized that it was important to improve themselves by sharing the information to make themselves better as well.
Hmm.
So I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I definitely, I think Slim X and Mopreme, they really sort of inspired me because I actually very early on when I was playing Third Strike, I put out a tutorial video. I don't know if it's gone. I can't even find it. I can't even find my own copy. I don't even know where the hard drive is, and it's like the dumbest tutorial video. Now that I look at it, I'm so embarrassed to like even talk about it. But but my friend and I made this low forward reversal video.
Okay.
So basically we we recorded basically everything you could do to Ken or Ryu or or Sean or Goki. We basically recorded everything you could punish block low forward Shoto with.
Okay.
I don't know. See, you don't even
That's not
remember
bad. I
watching
mean, for
that,
its time, that's
but
not out of the question. It's legitimate. I mean, I think that's pretty cool.
you
You took
know,
the incentive to go forth, further than most people
yeah.
at the time did.
I mean, a lot of
So
it was spacing. A lot of it was spacing dependent, and but I don't know. It was just yeah, because I just sort of one of the things that I realized when I was sort of preparing for this podcast is when I first came up it was videos by Slim X, it was videos by Mopreme, and at the time I didn't even know Slim X was from Texas. When I first got into Third Strike seriously, so that's really cool. Another thing I remember Mopreme putting out the charge partitioning
yep.
video or the charge buffering video of Remy. You remember that?
Hmm.
That was cool too. But yeah, definitely. So I think this is a good time for a break now. And then when we come back, Haas, I want to talk a little bit about kind of your return to Third Strike.
Okay.
It seems as though you sort of came back around when 3SO came out,
Yes, absolutely.
which is obviously for a lot of people that was kind of a turning point for them. And so we'll talk a little bit about your return to the scene and what you're sort of doing now, not just for Third Strike, for the other games. And then obviously we'll talk about Showdown. So once again, guys, you're watching the Mutant Experience podcast, episode 8 with Haas, and we will be back in a few minutes. Stay tuned, guys. All right, guys, this is Mutant XP, back with Mutant Experience Podcast, Episode 8, with my special guest from Texas, Haas. So, Haas, so far, we've sort of covered the early days of Third Strike in Texas, and now you had mentioned before the break that you had sort of gone away from the scene. And how long were you away? Quite some time.
Almost 11 years. It's about 10 and a half years or so. Fall of '01 to like 2000. When did OE come out?
2011, I think.
Yeah, so maybe 10 years, maybe a little over, something like that. So
No, while you were away, I mean, come on, you had to have like watched videos though. Like you sort of kept
yeah,
up a
of
little
course.
bit, right?
Watching videos and stuff like that, it's clips of like like a phone video or not phone, not even phone, but like Streak, for instance.
Hmm.
He was like an awesome player that knew Slimex pretty well, and he was one that would document a lot of stuff. He actually had, I think,
Oh
Karathrow.com was,
shit, I remember Streak. Sorry. Oh
yeah,
god, I
yeah, no,
remember
you're
Streak.
good. Yeah, Streak,
Damn, I
Karathrow.com
forgot
was
about
his.
him too. Oh man.
So he made a lot of videos, a lot. And he'd have
Yeah.
tripod and everything, and he'd have videos, and Slimex would send me those videos. And I did go back one time in '04. Actually. They had
My
the
bad.
best.
I think Streak is the Shen. Is the Shen before the Shen. Psychochronic was
I
more
think
like
so.
a Psychochronic was more like he covered everything. But Streak was the guy, right? Who had the Third Strike vids.
Yeah, Streak's cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually a part of that Discord group that we were in
Oh,
the
awesome,
last
awesome.
night. He's in that Discord too. So he's a pretty cool dude. Really good player as well. Just really, really good at digging up data and making it happen and
Hmm.
making it easy for people to understand. But yeah, yeah. Maybe I was out for like, I was watching videos. I came back for one. It was like best of old school, best versus best of new school, which is kind of funny because this is back in '04. So it's like the best of us versus the best of what '04 had.
Uh,
I think the best of that time were like Mike Lai, a guy named Avril, and a couple other guys. And they were pretty good. They were pretty good, but it was not like Shin's level. You know what I mean? It wasn't
hmm.
like I was impressed, but like I felt like the only reason I lost is because I was out of practice.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel like I was wowed, by. I mean, they were still great players. Don't get me wrong, but I
Hmm.
wasn't wowed. It wasn't like the shock factor that Shin had. You know what I mean? The thought process,
Hmm.
that he would provide to allow us to level up faster. So yeah, it was cool. I mean, I watched videos. I saw the Evo moment, of course. I think I had watched it in my was it engineering mechanics class, and like
Yeah.
I had pulled it up, and then like everybody wanted to watch it too, and they crowded around. They're like, "Whoa, this is what is going?" They didn't even know what was going on. They're like, "Whoa, he's doing some crazy stuff. He's stopping everything she's doing," and that's just and people were just going nuts. Like people didn't even play Third Strike. Were like, "This is insane." The Daigo moment like just blew everybody away. I remember it was like right before a major test that I had too, and it was really cool, man. It was really cool to see other people, get into that. During that time, I also I had modded an Xbox, and I had done the EVOX or whatever mod, and I'd run like a FBA emulator on my Xbox with actual American arcade sticks plugged into the Xbox. So we could play like kind of a real ST, kind of, not arcade perfect, but better than a lot of the console ports at the time.
Hmm.
So we did that. I trained some people that were there, but they were just, casuals. We did it for fun. It wasn't like they had the heart of like wanting to, or a thirst for competition to where they wanted to really, go in and murder because we had no scene. I mean, there's no arcade there. We tried to create a scene with just people and students, but the time was wrong. The time was wrong. But
Hmm.
at least in that town, the way the town was organized, it was more of a party town. Nobody wanted to really take anything that seriously. So, but yeah, other than that, OE brought me back. I didn't even play that much. Since OE, I really didn't play like every day, really. I mean, like I haven't played daily for like several hours a day since like 2001 and
Hmm.
before. So like, I'll play like, when OE came out, I played like maybe like 30 minutes to an hour every day, and depended on my old technology to get me by, which actually worked really well when OE first came out, as most people didn't know how to deal with it. So it was, pretty pretty simple to get wins and stuff like that until people started figuring out, the tech and whatnot. But
Did
I
you
think
did you play sorry to interrupt real quick,
no, you're good.
but did you play Third Strike online with any other clients before OE?
Okay, so
Like
before OE, okay, so back in '07,
mhm.
I went to Sin's. Sin was getting his master's degree in at Corpus Christi, Texas,
Uh-huh.
Southeast Texas, and he basically he's like, hey man, like you should come over and hang out with me. I just finished my big test. You and Sam come down and hang out. We'll play some games. And so I went over there, and he's like, dude, check out this like this online Third Strike, this program that supports like online 3S and other games. And I was like, what is this called? It was like DGPO. I was like, okay. And it was showing to me,
Sorry.
and we were playing. Oh, you're good.
Yeah.
And we were playing against a guy named what was it? There was this amazing Hugo that I've never seen such Hugo in my life. That good.
Okay.
But it was just like insane, and we can't remember what his name was. It was like I don't remember, but it was good times. Like it was really good times.
Mm,
We had fun on there. I felt like it was like a good experience. I
mm,
was like, wow, finally online Third Strike. This is before OE, obviously,
yeah.
and I played on and off, but I played more ST on GGPO
Mm,
than I did Third Strike, just because I don't know. I mean, if I wanted to play 3S with buddies, like I just go to Austin and play at their place or something. I mean, it was more of a
yeah.
casual like party kind of hangout. Wasn't anything like in a tournament scene or anything like that. So, but when OE came out, there's that big 2012 tournament, right? The Capcom 25th anniversary tournament.
Mm,
And so I was like, you know what, I'll practice a little bit for this. So I did, and I didn't play all that well at the tournament. I was kind of mediocre, really, but it was fun to experience it again and kind of get back into it. And I got a lot of criticism from a lot of my friends saying that I was weak. Like you're weak compared to your old self. You don't have the fire you used to have. You're too kind. You're too happy for other players. And I mean, it's true. It's 100% true. Like I was like just happy to be involved in the scene again.
uh-huh.
So I was like, I wasn't like as serious as I could be. I wasn't as cutthroat. Like back then, winning was not a. Well, I mean, loss was not an option. Like if I missed, like say one, I tell this story a million times. If I missed one drop, if I dropped one thing out of 100 things, I would step out of the arcade. I would think about really hard how the hell I could have dropped one thing out of 100
Mm,
and why I dropped it and why was my mind not in the right place. Like that's how I used to criticize myself when I used to play back in the day.
mm,
And then I took this other completely different, like, seesaw 180 effect when I came back mentality. And I realized that it wasn't enough to get wins in, I mean, it wasn't enough to be good again. And so I kind of felt like I've kind of been trying to navigate that middle ground where I can play a little bit, still try to, get in people's heads here and there, but also, still have some, free time, not to play like 5, 6 hours a day, but also have a life and as you get older, you have more priorities, family and stuff like that, and
mm,
jobs, and if you're working like the hours that I have to work, then there's not really much time. So it's like if you don't have a job or something like that, sure, feel free play all the First Strike you want or any fighting game you want. It's good for you, but it's not something I can do. I don't have the luxury of that anymore.
mm,
So, but yeah, it's I'm not really like I'm not really, I would say, as practiced as I used to be. You know what I mean? Like I
mm,
still have fun. I still have a good time. I like connecting with people, but I'm definitely not prepared, I guess you would say. Like I don't feel like I'm ready for showdown right now. I'm not practiced enough ready for showdown.
mm,
Like I think that I really have to train against like when I prepare for a tournament, I basically pick out one person that I train against. It's Fu. Fu is my old training partner from Einstein's days. He was number 2 next to Shin,
mm,
and I was right behind him back in the beginning. And so I'll call Fu up and I'll say, hey man, like I want to play like a set like of like 30 or 40 games,
mm.
and we'll play like 30 or 40 games, and I'll be ready for a tournament. Like every time I've trained with him, I've won a tournament the next day.
Wow.
Every time. He's my old buddy, and he knows how to train me correctly. He
Mm.
knows how to piss me off and make me angry, and I play better when I'm angry.
Oh, do
So,
you?
mhm.
That's pretty rare.
No, I play extremely well when I'm really pissed off.
Okay. I hope someone triggers you at Texas Showdown.
Mhm. We'll see. We'll see. I'm
Yeah.
just happy to hang out there. I think
Yeah.
what I really need to do is practice more. That's all. But
Yeah. So when 3SO came out, what were your thoughts about, the build and everything? Because you're an old school Third Strike player, and then 3SO comes out. I mean,
right.
what were your reactions?
Well, okay. I was happy. I was
Uh huh.
happy that people were able to connect more easily, and not have to worry about cross challenging and stuff like that through GGPO.
Uh huh.
But I felt like it didn't play as good as a true arcade emulator. I mean, look at Co-op Cup. I mean, people argue this
Interesting.
point. People argue this point 24/7 where their OE is better than the emulator, but you have it straight from RKF's mouth at Co-op Cup. Emulator is better. Period. If it runs good, emulator is going to run better than 3S OE. Period. Hands down.
Hmm.
It should run better, just because of the way that the way by design it should run better.
Hmm.
But I mean, obviously, right now, Fightcade has some issues. It's not running like it used to run. When Fightcade first came out, it ran very similar to GGPO speed. It was
Hmm.
very, very good. I can't say the same right now. Then again, people still argue with me on that point, saying that it's still perfect. I swore by FICade. I swore by it for a very, very long time. I
Hmm.
did. I swore by FICade for a very, very long time, and I thought that it was the future and stuff like that, and I thought that it would be great. I hopefully this update that comes out is going to basically fix the issue
Hmm.
that it has right now, but we'll see. We'll see. But I mean, I remember when I heard RKF say that at Co-op Cup, though. He's like, no, he's like, emulator is number one, period. Unless you're playing on cab. I mean, obviously cab's number one, but like, as far as online goes, emulator like that runs well should be the closest thing to Arcade Perfect. And I have enough hours on a cab to say that for
Hmm.
sure.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about just you getting back into the scene and going to tournaments and stuff. And so what were some of the what were obviously you had this big layoff and then you came back and then there's just brand new players. And so how do you see your role in terms of guiding the Texas third strike scene, this new generation, obviously both from Austin and Houston.
Well, okay, so it's kind of hard to say that because I try to be as involved as I can, but
Hmm.
also I lack a lot of time to be as involved as I want to be. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So like I've missed a lot of the UFO tournaments. I've missed a lot of a lot of the old man Thursday nights, majority of them actually. A lot of stuff, a lot of the UFO meetups and stuff like that I missed out on. So I feel like it's I connect with the guys the best that I can, and
Hmm.
I'm always like really happy to see them and stuff like that. But I feel like if I had more time on my hands I could be more connected and maybe help more. But it's I don't know. It's
It is what it is, man. I mean, you get older, you have responsibilities.
yeah. I mean, like it kills me to say that because I every time I go to the arcade and I play in a UFO tournament or like I go and just hang out with the guys or see them at like a South by Southwest gaming festival or something. I'm just really genuinely happy to see everybody and really happy to connect and share stories and just play games and stuff like that. I generally like just love I love it so much, but I'm not able to be as involved as if I lived in Austin, shoot, if I was 5 minutes away from UFO, I'd be there pretty much every day, hands down, 100%.
Really.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be there with the guys playing 4 days a week, easy. But it's like an hour drive from here, and I just you lose 2 hours of your life just driving back and forth. It's
Hmm.
just too much time.
But you do try your best to go to the major events, and that brings us to Texas Showdown. And so,
Correct.
as we said at the beginning of the show, Texas Showdown. I mean, this might be what, like the 13th, 14th Showdown, maybe.
At least, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I'd say
maybe.
so.
I don't know. I really should have researched that. My apologies. So, you know, uh, I know that last year you went to Texas Showdown and you participated in ST
Mhm.
and Third Strike. And so obviously Texas Showdown is set to go down in May, May 4th through 6th, I believe. Those are the dates.
May 5th to 7th,
May 5th
actually.
through 7th.
Yes.
May 5th through 7th. And so you will be in attendance?
Yes, I'll be playing in both Third Strike tournaments and both ST tournaments.
Okay. And so, not to put you on the spot here, Haas, but at this stage in your life, which game do you enjoy playing more?
And this is being completely honest, all jokes aside,
Uh-huh.
I love them equally. I used to be an ST head. I've always, even over the years, when I first played Third Strike and I performed well in tournaments in Third
Uh-huh.
Strike, I felt that like I still loved ST more.
Uh-huh.
But to tell you the truth, man, um, you know, are you talking just game itself, or are you talking about like community and the
Just
people as
everything, man,
well?
the whole experience. Because I don't think you
Okay,
could.
so if you combine,
I don't think you could separate the two, really.
right, right, exactly. So if you combine everything,
Yeah.
all together. I would say Cam went out of focus for some reason. Let's see. But basically, I don't know. I feel like a more brethren connection with the Third Strike crowd. I felt like I made more friends, lifetime friends, through Third Strike.
Hmm.
So I have to say that if I lean one direction, and I hate to say this because so many years I believed otherwise. Like it was always 60-40, ST Third Strike, 60-40, right? And I want to say it's skewed, but I want to say it's more like 55% Third Strike, 45% ST. Really,
Hmm.
realistically,
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
and it's so cool that you say that because there's been a lot of talk recently about how the Third Strike scene how they're viewed by other players from other scenes. We've heard the narrative before, right?
Right.
Third Strike players, they're cocky, they're elitist, they're stuck up, so forth and so on. But it's really cool for you to it's really cool for to to hear you say that, in terms of how you sort of made most of your friendships and relationships through Third Strike. Do you think it's just about the game? Do you have any idea as to why that is, or
I think it's just the game. Honestly, if ST was in the arcade, let's say the ST was like, I don't
like
know.
for example, right? You had during the break. I don't know if you want to share this story or not, but you had told me your some of your experiences on IRC in those
Yes,
early days.
yes. I'm
Are
happy
you
to share
willing to
that.
are you willing to share that story?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. As a matter of fact, and this is a truth, 100% truth, and even Javier Moreno can vouch for me, and so can Slim X. When we first used to try to share tech on IRC in the Capcom channel, we would go in there and we would be like, okay, so check it out. We have this information, that we found out that you can now Kara throw in the game and stuff like that. And we would be, having discussions on IRC with each other. There'd be some guys from the West Coast that'd be interested.
Hmm.
Then there was some ops in the channel. I was actually an op of the Capcom channel with Javier Moreno and Mr. Wizard and those guys back in 99, 2000 on
Hmm.
IRC. And I actually got de-opt and banned from the channel for sharing Third Strike information.
What?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
Yes, they kicked me. Yeah, specifically Mr. Wizard actually kicked me out. And he said
What,
he
Mister?
said Third Strike's a scrub game, and Texas is a bunch of scrubs. Texas sucks. I think he hates Texas. That is what it comes down to. I don't think it was
Oh,
so
wait,
much
wait, wait.
Third
Okay,
Strike.
because we hear that he hates Third Strike, he hates Texas. Does he hate
But
both? I
I don't
mean,
know. I don't know. But the thing is, I got banned. I was an op, okay, an op in that channel, and I got kicked and banned for sharing data. And I wasn't even cussing. I was legitimately cool. I had not caused any drama. I was chill, But the thing is, they kicked me and banned me. And the funny thing is, actually, I left that channel and I was like, "F you guys! I'm gonna make an SF3 channel at IRC." So I did. And the first person to follow me before he even played Third Strike was Mopreme. Mopreme was the first person to follow.
mhm,
He followed me in that channel. He was like so loyal. Like it was like without question, Mopreme bailed out of Capcom channel and joined my SF3 channel IRC.
mhm,
And then I told Mopreme, I was like, you know what? Maybe it's not worth it. Like, what's the point in trying to create why separate this? Why try to, I mean, I want to create a ground where it's safe to talk about Third Strike without getting criticized. But at the same time, I want to, it's not worth it. It's not worth the trouble. It's not worth getting butthurt over. So,
mhm,
but yeah, Moprim. This is before Moprim even touched the game really. Like he would maybe play when we weren't playing, and he would play like during like the daytime or something.
mhm.
But he was I didn't even know who he was when that name joined the channel, and I was like, oh Moprim, nice to see you in here and stuff like that. And anyways, that just goes to show you how awesome Moprim is.
Yeah.
Moprim's legit, man. He's the real deal. So
And what's so interesting to me, at least, about that story, Haas, is even in the beginning days, there seems to have been a sort of dislike of Third Strike
right.
in the FGC. And so my next question is, do you think, you know, that may have something to do with the way, Third Strike players, people who really love the game and people like who really swear by the game. Do you think that may have sort of have had an effect as to how, they perceive other games and how they defend their game? Because, in the Third Strike Junkies post by Black, one of the allegations, one of the things that, he wrote in the post is that supposedly, you know, other other players from other scenes have heard or seen Third Strike players saying oh, Third Strike's the best, every other game is shitty and stuff like that. um and obviously I started sort of trying to explore, and again, the Eat podcast wasn't trying to call anyone out. It wasn't trying to, I wasn't trying to sort of pin the blame on one scene or another. I was just genuinely interested in like why this perception exists. So do you think that has something to do with, why Third Strike players appear so defensive or quote unquote elitist about the game because they've had to sort of defend it from the very beginning? Or do you think there's no connection between the two?
Well, yeah. So from my point of view, given I was coming from ST's background, right?
Uh-huh.
So for me, it was more of like a dislike of the change of how the game was moving, the direction
Mhm.
it was moving. But that was because I lacked the understanding of the advanced tech that was to come. You know what I mean? and you know, you can't just write off a game at first until you really explore it. And I learned that the hard way, of
Mm-hmm.
course. But the thing is, like, I think that when you invest so much time into a game like Third Strike, and Third Strike has so much depth, more than most fighting games, period.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, outside of Virtua Fighter, okay, outside of Virtua Fighter,
Yeah, I'm not
but
even.
like,
I don't think I could say anything bad about Virtual Fighter.
yeah, VF is like probably the most advanced game, period, on the market, hands
Yeah.
down, no questions asked. But like, the Third Strike, you know, is a very deep game for a Street Fighter game. You know, ST has its depth too, but
Oh,
its tech isn't
tread
as
carefully, Hoss.
I mean, no, I love ST. I mean, ST has its tech. I mean, shoot, we
uh,
discovered a, not to go off tangent here, but like at the Salty Suite back in 2014, TMF is a Geef player, right? He was
uh,
showing me an option select for Geef that was discovered in June of 2014.
uh,
They just discovered it a month before Evo,
mm-hmm.
actually.
Yeah.
So there's still stuff being discovered for that game too. I mean, keep in mind, I love both games almost evenly. Okay, so I'm not biased really any way or the other. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that what you're talking about though is that I think it's just people. I think it's just the maybe the wrong attitude. You know what I mean? I think people just need to chill out. Like shit. I mean, in Texas, do you think we got by and built our scene by talking shit to players? Like, do you think that's how we handle things? Like when people would like give us crap, we would actually literally like just not play with. We would go to the bars and drink, you know, drink drinks. Like you know, we weren't big on like negative like attitudes. You know what I'm saying? If somebody was trying to literally or is just trying to really bring somebody down without, you know, there's healthy shit talk and there's a fine line between healthy shit talk and like bad or like negative intent.
Mm-hmm.
And like I feel like the people that had that negative intent, we wouldn't even play with them. We wouldn't even give them the time of day. We'd be like, you know what, we're going to the bars, you can play against the computer by yourself. And you know, we would just leave them, let them play by themselves and just kind of shun them because they were causing problems. Like they were the problem causers, you know what I'm saying? Like we were very welcoming to very, you know, most players that wanted to come in, and anybody that came in, even if you're just mashing buttons, we would teach them like what not to do and how to not mash and stuff like that. So like we were very inviting. Like I think that the reason Austin scene works so well and why it carried on through all these generations is because it's always been the same. People have always been chill for the most part. I mean, minus some stuff we talked about in the last stream. You know, we talked about whatever the shit talk that happened with was it Starboy?
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about Starboy.
Yeah,
We gotta talk
Starboy.
about.
Yeah, that's separate.
We
But
have to
like,
talk about Starboy
as far as
later.
like, you know, bringing people into the scene, right? Bringing people in and inviting them in and making them feel welcome. Um, it was like, you know, we felt motivated to help. We didn't feel motivated to shun people that wanted to learn. If they were
Uh-huh.
like asking questions that may be considered stupid by what people are, you know, shunning people with now on the forums, we would still, you know, give them the time of day and say, look, like, well, this is what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
If they improve, they did. If they didn't
Mm-hmm.
improve, so be it. It's like, you know, we get more you know, a more win streak on the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically the players that played better, that wanted to not wait in line, not wait in queue to play, were the ones that really had to excel. You want to keep your money, you want to play, then you better get better, because if you don't have the motivation to get better, then you're not going to. And you're going to lose all your money and you're not going to be able to play on the machine as often.
Mm-hmm.
Your play time in a 6 hour period might be a total of 15, 20 minutes. Whereas like somebody who's good can play for like several hours over, you know, maybe an hour or two play time out of those 6 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like we looked at it as like a more of a, I don't know, it was a combination of a lot of good things. And the negativity that comes, I think it's just a people thing. I think it's just people not being like, when you're not next to somebody and sitting next to somebody, it's easier to insult somebody, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like when I don't know. I mean, if I feel, to be honest, to be completely honest, like I've said this before, but if you're secure about yourself, what's the point? What's the point in downing somebody? Why would you feel the need to shut somebody out who wants to ask a question about a game that you're into? And if you're really wanting, you know, I mean, and that person that might be considered a scrub or whatever you want to say, you know, whatever they want to call them. I never really say that about new players, but like, you know, whatever you want to call this player that wants to learn, that guy could start off slow and then become the best. And the thing is, like by shunning them and by like not helping the people that want to learn, you're what you're doing is you're cutting those people out, and you're basically cutting out a whole level of players or a whole plethora of players that could be the next big thing. And I'm saying maybe one out of a million might be the best next big thing,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe somebody that is now not wanting to play Third Strike because of the negativity or negative associations with the game, that person may have been the next best thing. I'm not saying that like a champion, all champions should have their own mindset and get good on their own. It's not like that. It's more like some people just need a little bit of a push,
Hmm.
and everybody's different. Not everybody's mind works the same, and so some people catch on slower, some people catch on faster. But it's the passion that matters, and if the passion is there, the possibilities are there too.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't think Black was, his post. Well, because you're entrenched in the ST scene now as well, right, Haas? So,
yes.
I'm just gonna ask you a very straightforward question. I mean, you've read Black's post, or you're aware of what he said in the post. You know, just from what you've, because you're in the ST scene, so you're technically, and you're not really, you left 3S Junkies a while ago for your own reasons, um, and you play five as well, right?
Yeah,
And you
I'm
know,
gonna be honest. I'm
it's
gonna
okay.
straight up
We
say this
don't.
right
We're
here.
not gonna.
I'm giving it a chance to see if I
Mhm.
can overcome the hate that I used to have for
Yeah.
other fighting games. You know what I mean? And then just give it a fair. The thing is, though, I can 100% say right now, as of right now, it doesn't compare anywhere near to as good as Third Striker ST. So I'll make that
Uh-huh.
very clear, very clear.
Mhm.
So in its current state, it's nowhere near. But
So
I still,
yeah.
I still try to give it a chance.
So you interact with players. You basically interact with a lot of players that have not touched Third Strike or played Third Strike. So I'm gonna ask you a very straightforward question. You know, the things that Black said in the post in terms of how other scenes perceive the Third Strike scene, are those things that you have heard about or seen as well? Like in terms of, because in Black's posts, you know, supposedly players outside the Third Strike scene view us as elitists. That we hate on other games, that we insult their intelligence and stuff like that. Is there some merit to that? I mean,
Well, I mean, people just don't leave groups that they join for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Like I left the group. I was like, hey, I mean, I'm not trying to badmouth anybody per se, but like the negativity was so great that I was like, screw this. I'm done with this crap. Like I'm gonna move on and hang out with some people that actually are happy with their lives. So like it was too much negativity. That's why I left.
but have you
And
heard
that's
other players go, wow, like for
of
example,
course,
something that Black said in the post was, wow, Third Strike, it looks like a really cool game, but I'm kind of afraid to learn it because I don't want to get shit
yeah,
on. Like, have
yeah.
you heard those things actually
Yeah,
from
dude.
people?
Oh, all the time, especially for Third Strike. It's actually when I used to stream regularly, like several days a week. The whole point of the stream was to bring in new players that didn't even know how to play the game, right? And just kind of get them to, it was more casual. It wasn't like we were like dictating, like, okay, we watch every match and we basically give like a bunch of data on it. It was more of a casual, like, okay, by the way, you don't want to do that or you don't want to do this. It was like it was back at Einstein's. I
Hmm.
try to create the same environment as I did at Einstein's Arcade when we were doing the tournaments back there. And so basically, the mentality behind it was that everybody's welcome, and you guys have a safe place here to not be judged. You know what I mean? And so the point was that and people would come in. They're like, dude, I'm here to lurk. I don't want to play. I do play Third Strike, but I'm afraid to play on stream. I was like, well, why is that? And so I heard that at least I'm gonna say 10 to 12 times at
Hmm.
least from different people. And they're like, well, it's just that it's just there's like I feel like I'm gonna be hated on, or I don't know what the terms that they used were exactly the words they used, but they were afraid because they're afraid to be judged or afraid to be judged negatively. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's consolidated to Third Strike scene per se, but the Twitch generation especially, with all the the trolls in chat and stuff like that, also kind of fuel that fire too, right? So it's like cohesive sort of negativity, I guess.
Hmm.
But as far as my stream in particular, the players, I've had a lot of scared players, and I have probably convinced out of those 12, 10 of them to play, and the other two just wouldn't do it. The 10 that did play, two of them I consider people that have a very bright future and are probably going to move forward pretty quickly if they continue on. So, and that's a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier is that you're basically cutting out people by insulting people before before you get to know them or whatnot. You're basically cutting out a potential awesome player, and that's just not cool. That's not cool at all. and I'm totally against it. It's not what we would have stood for at Einstein's Arcade. And I mean, considering we were the first to do it for Third Strike, I think that that's a very serious thing to take, to look at, because we were very good about being cool with people back then too, in
Hmm.
person. And I think that and I mean, not to go on and on about it, but I think that when you grow up in an arcade environment, right, you could be sitting next to somebody that that you don't like, right? You may not like them at all. They might be your rival in the arcade, and there wasn't much said back then in those days. Nobody talked to each other, but you had to learn to respect them, whether you liked it or not, right? And you learn that lesson growing up in the arcades, and I think that that lesson is lost now in the online generation. I think that it's hard for people to have that natural level of like, you know, uh, understanding for respecting the other player because of that lack of
Hmm.
connection that was required, or that lack of in-person, uh, you know, uh, communication that went on back in the arcades. And I think that that has a lot to do with it too. I mean, it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah,
But it's just
yeah. And something I wanted to chime in, and I don't know if you would agree with this, Haas, but the FGC is getting kind of long in the tooth, getting kind of old, and a lot more streams like mine are starting to kind of look back and reflect, and then a lot of people are talking about, oh, back in the arcade days. But what I'm starting to kind of notice is that you know your arcade experience was not necessarily the same as the arcade experience that someone say, you know, someone coming from New York City
right,
or
right.
SoCal. So I think one thing we should be really careful of is, especially when we talk to new players, is that when people say, "Oh, back in the arcade days," because I don't think every arcade environment was the same. Because from what you're describing and what I've heard, and from the stories that you've told on this stream tonight, you know what was going on in Einstein sounds a lot different from what I experienced in SoCal. And
Okay.
I'm sure that your experience and my experience differed from, say, you know, someone who was, growing up in Chinatown Fair. I mean, there are similarities and there are differences. Because it seems like, your scene was a lot more, I guess, laid back, it seems. I mean,
That was Einstein's, but in the '90s, early
Einstein's.
'90s, it was straight up
Okay.
like you would have to worry about getting shot, getting stabbed.
Okay.
If you tick throat somebody in World Warrior,
Hmm.
they would basically take you in the back of the arcade and threaten to kick your ass once you paid them money back.
Hmm.
So you'd have to pay up like $1 or like 50 cents to
Hmm.
not get beat up
Because
by a
because
tick throat.
because one of my earliest memories of playing Third Strike and kind of going, you know what, I kind of want to actually really learn this game is, do you remember an old school SoCal player, Ken player by the name of
What's
Paulie,
his actual name?
Paulie.
Oh,
They
Paul
named him
Lee. Okay,
Paulie.
I was like,
Yeah.
Paul was his nickname. Okay, no, okay, no, I don't actually. I'm not
Well,
familiar with
he was a very he was a pretty famous Third Strike player back in the day. Um, Sadly, like the most common story about him is the story of SBO Qualls when he supposedly banged the machine while another player, Vic Vance, Victally, was trying to parry Chun Super, and that supposedly caused Vic to miss the parry. it's, I mean, it's a story that got circulated a lot back in the day. But anyway, I think my earliest memories of playing Third Strike were against Paul Lee at Southern Hills Golfland. I mean, obviously you know of Southern Hills Golfland, right?
Yes. Yep. Hmm.
And I remember, I don't, I don't think he ever said a word to me for like a year. Like he just let me play him, and and I would spend like on a night, I would spend, this Third Strike's a quarter. Third Strike was a quarter back then. I'd spend like $5-10, and I wouldn't win one game. And I'm sure that I was doing the same shit, and I'm sure I was making the same mistakes, and it wasn't like, because you were talking about how even if you mashed or stuff like that, you would point them out and stuff.
Of
But but
course.
but Paul never did that. He just, I think he used me as a training dummy, to like practice his combos and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that sounds very different, right? Like that seems very different from like a mind experiment, right? Like say I lived in Austin and I started learning Third Strike at Einstein instead of Southern Hills Golfland. How would my experience be different? Would it be different?
You know what it comes down to though, Mutant, is that the thing is we started that scene, right? So the thing is like we created the standard for what was going to happen
Hmm.
with Third Strike in that arcade,
I
right?
see.
So it's up to him to
Hmm.
do a better job of being a little bit better, more upfront, or like a little bit more. If he really wants to improve himself as a fighter, he would have helped you so that he could
Hmm.
improve himself.
I mean, I didn't tell the story to kind of throw shade at,
No,
at,
I'm just
at
saying
Paul.
that's straight up how it is, though.
Yeah. Um, did all the wasted money make me a better player? I mean, I don't know if it did. I think people get better in different ways. Like how like some people it just clicks one day, and for
Yeah, I
others
mean,
and for others it's
exactly.
sort of a gradual thing. So I don't know if like, and that's why I have these like issues with posts on 3SJ where it's like, oh, back in the day I would get my ass kicked, and forge fire forges steel or whatever, and you know what I mean, like this just sort of
Yeah,
generalized dumb shit that people say on the forums, like, oh, the beatings are what make you stronger and stuff like that. Like, not necessarily. People get better in different ways.
right,
So
right. I mean, and I can use that same excuse too. I was forged in the fires of the arcades, and I was shit talked, and people were threatened to stab me, which is all facts, right? But it doesn't change the fact that I shouldn't change the way if I have the option to make things better for the community that's around me.
mhm,
Like, why go revert back to that mentality? Why
mhm,
not? Why not? If you have some sort of like leadership in a position, you should consider that what position you have and what you can do to better a situation rather than like holding like elitist attitude, I guess.
mhm,
Um, just we could have been like, oh yeah, we were the first here playing Third Strike in Austin, so the rest of you guys that want to learn, screw you guys. We could have done that. We could have easily done that. But how do you think Austin got so good? How do you think Shin got to SBO with just practice from Austin? How do you think that happened? Right? It's the
yeah,
way we handle things, the way we did things, the way we operated. And I think that I'm not saying it's the right way. I'm saying that it worked for us. And I
mhm,
think that if when you're in, and keep in mind the arcade was dead. Okay, it wasn't like there was already a scene there at Einstein's. It was
mhm,
dead. So we were the ones that just happened to fall into that position to where we would say, okay, you know what? Let's bring these guys in. Let's get people. Let's get like a big bulk amount of people and get these tournaments to like 30 plus. And let's take these guys and let's go against Houston and destroy them.
mhm,
And that was the mentality, and there was no, it was all about improvement. It wasn't about pride. I mean, of course, when I was 19, of course I had pride. Of course that was the thing. Of course I hated losing to stupid shit. But
mhm,
like, the big picture though was that we didn't let it, the beneficial uh, things that came from the way things were handled and the way things were ran worked out really well.
mhm,
And part of it could have been by accident, but I think a lot of it had to do with just a positive reinforcement,
mhm.
honestly.
I mean, I
And
will I will admit, Haas, like, you know, all those years of, like, and people, obviously, who are familiar with the SoCal arcade scene back in the day can attest to this. I will admit though that, when you do finally get that slight bit of recognition, it does feel good, especially,
okay,
you know, especially if, you know, people like, the whole respect thing, right? And I think that's a word that gets tossed around a little too lightly too. Like, what exactly do people mean by respect? But that's a totally different, we could go on and on about that. But I will admit though, like, once you get that recognition, like going up and, coming up in the SoCal scene, once you finally like once finally a top player remembers your face, not even their
right,
name, but remembers your face and says what's up to you, like it does feel good, especially after being ignored and being sort of, you
right.
know I mean, I guess I will admit that that did feel good, right? um and so, I mean, I don't know, I'm just kind of sort of riffing here, but I just feel like you do make a good point, right? Because basically the arcade was dead, and then Third Strike
Right.
came, and so you kind of wrote your own destiny here. You kind of wrote your own rules. Whereas in SoCal, The arcade scene was always alive, and it was basically the games, because there was a rivalry with the games themselves. Marvel players versus CVS2 players. I mean, they were literally fighting for players, fighting for attention.
Right.
So I can see why both arcades, both arcade scenes kind of came up the way they did, in different ways. But you're right. I think, but in this generation, right? And I guess here's my next question for you, Haas. Obviously, ST and Third Strike, they're not the most popular fighting games around anymore. But there are still a lot of people who love the game, a lot of people who swear by the game. So, what what would you do to try to get more people to play Third Strike? Because one of the ironic things about the post and 3S junkies is there's a lot of players that go, oh, if you don't want to, if you can't take the needling, if you can't take all that stuff, then go. We don't want you anyway. Third Strike. And then what's the motto though, right? What's the popular motto of Third Strike, right? Oh, play Third Strike. It's a good game. So it's kind of ironic. So my next question is, how do we get more people to play Third Strike? Like, what's your sort of take on that?
Okay, so from a local scene point of view, I can tell you
Yeah, that's good.
what has been done, I guess, and I can
Huh?
talk about the online perspective as well. I can hit both
Okay.
sides. Okay, and
So let's
both
start with a
fight
local
against
scene, I guess.
local. Okay, so as you know, Einstein's Arcade has had several generations, right?
Hmm.
And as you know, UFO has its own generation of arcade scene, right? It was after Einstein's died, Fubar opened up UFO. The thing is, somebody has to step up and
Hmm.
somebody has to do something.
Hmm.
Like for instance, like when I went to 2012 20th anniversary tournament, right, for Street Fighter 3 and 2 and whatever else was there. I think Cross Tech was there too or something. But that tournament, I met this guy named Trevor Thomas, and these guys in Austin can vouch for me here. Okay, so again, we're here at a scene at UFO where the arcade is dead for Third Strike. There's not an arcade scene at all. 2012, there's not a real good scene. You go to arcade UFO, maybe play one person every other day, maybe one person on a Tuesday would show up that would be good or something, and that was about it. Or even just somebody random coming in mashing buttons. You're excited to see somebody get on the machine. Trevor had said he had gone to UFO when I met him at that tournament, 25th anniversary tournament. He's like, you know what, man? He's like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go ahead and get a job at UFO. And when I get a job at UFO, I'm gonna throw the best tournaments that I could ever throw. And I was like, man, you know what? You go ahead and do that, man. You go ahead, you have the time to do it. Go ahead and do it. Get it started. Do your thing, man. And you know what he did? He did exactly what he said he was gonna do. He got the job at UFO. He started throwing tournaments, the best tournaments that Austin's ever seen in the history of Austin, hands down. Uh, and he uh, and he brought it all back, man. He would basically work at UFO and he would put up these awesome detailed posters. He would design these posters for 3S and ST, and so like he would be working and somebody would walk in and play on Third Strike Tab. He's like, hey, by the way, there's a tournament coming up. We have a bunch of awesome players here. Everybody's really kind. Let's go ahead and why don't you just come on and play in the tournament and we'll do a team tournament and you can kind of like shadow behind somebody and kind of learn the ropes and learn how to play in a tournament situation. And so he would encourage people to kind of come in and play and whatnot. And so believe it or not, that the first tournament he threw for Third Strike in Austin, the very first one had like I think 36 or 38 people, something
Wow.
like that. And so, because of his positive reinforcement, again, it's over and over again. What you're seeing here is positive reinforcement. Okay, you're seeing that in every generation of Austin, as well as in Einstein's Austin, as well as UFO's Austin generation. And it's the same sort of thing. Somebody's stepping up. They're creating a fun environment. They're making it fun for people that are new to the game to come in and make them feel confident about themselves. Even when they're feeling down, you're like, okay, dude, you know what? You can do it. Come back in. You know, do better this time. And they may not improve that time, but then after a tournament, game, they really start thinking about it and they realize that, hey, like this guy is carrying me right now. If they're new, and I got to figure out how to get better so I can actually help him out. Some of their mentalities was that. Like at least two of the people that I met that were brand new
Hmm.
had that mentality, and that's really good. And so, shout out to Trevor Thomas, ST Rever, straight up, man. He's the real deal. He lives in Japan now. He does compete at Co-op Cup. Most of you guys know him as Sasuga Toreba, and he's really really cool. Just hands down, like real deal, man. And of course, like Rico throwing it down, holding down the tournaments to this day. I know we haven't had one in a while, but things have been busy for everybody. Anybody that's stepped up and done any sort of tournament arrangement and held tournaments, like Rico is the most recent one, and he's done a great job. And all those guys that are doing that, they're creating, and I guarantee you, every single one of them is inviting and friendly.
Hmm.
And I know you guys met Isco. You saw him. I know you know him, Mutant.
Yeah,
You know he's a great guy.
Rico. Yeah.
And you have guys like Colton that also played here in Austin, that
Hmm.
also now are in the Northeast, and you've met them too. I mean, look at everybody that's come from this area. Have you met anybody that has really like seemed like they were judgmental or like negative in any way towards any other player? Honestly,
No, no, no.
not once, right? So the thing is, like, that works for us. It
Hmm.
works for Austin. It's worked for Texas. It even worked for Houston. Even the shit talk Houston gave us back in the day was not even that big of a deal. It was like just like, oh, we're better than you and we're gonna prove it. That's about as far as it went. It wasn't like you guys suck. Like you have weak players and you'll never be able to be as good as us. It wasn't like that. It was a clear, there's a fine line between both those statements.
Hmm.
And the thing is, like, again, everybody's different. Like you said, our arcade scenes are different. But I'm telling you, from 2000 or 99 to 2017, we've been operating the same way in Austin as it's always been. And guess what? It's worked for 17 years, 18 years now. So I mean, you can't knock on it unless you try it. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And the thing is, like, I think that needs to be more positive reinforcement. I think tough love is good as long as it's constructive tough love. Um, but yeah, so basically, Trevor though, look at what Trevor did to turn it around. He resurrected the scene. He alone resurrected Third Strike for Austin, and nobody really knows this. Or the Austin guys know it, but nobody else from outside of Austin knows that, and they should know it. They should know it. And they should recognize it.
So I
So
so I guess the takeaway is it all it takes is one, right? Just
yeah,
one
one takes
guy.
is somebody, a leader that's willing to do the right thing. If you're in power, position of power, which he was in charge of throwing the tournaments, pretty good player too. That helps too, right? Being good, it helps. Having those sort of things,
Actually, it's funny that you say that, Hoss. I sorry, I don't want to
oh, you
interrupt
good?
you, but I wanted to I wanted to get your input on this. So, you know, like you said, in terms of getting more people to play Third Strike on a local level, it takes somebody to step up, right? And you said that it helps if the person, is in a kind of place of power. But you also said it helps if they're good. And
Right.
so, what's like and so now let's sort of look at the national level. Like, what's the responsibility of if you see if they have any responsibility? What do you think is the responsibility of the of other players that have been part of the community? How are when they see someone like a Trevor or they see someone like a Katie Alpha, trying to make stuff happen in the
Right.
scene, what is how should we as players who have been in the scene, who have been in the community, how are we supposed to treat them and how are we supposed to sort of, you
Support
know,
them. Support them. If they're putting the work in, help them out, man. Give them a thumbs up, pat them on the back. Just say, look, dude, like I
regardless of
appreciate
how
what you're
bad
doing.
they are, skill level?
Here's the thing. The reason I said it helps if you're good is that you can also teach at a
Okay,
higher level if you're a
okay.
good player, right? If you
Hmm.
know how to play the game and you're also a leader, you can give more on the technical side of things, right?
Hmm.
And so that and you have people can look up to that, right?
Hmm.
More so than somebody who's just kind of like a TO that doesn't play, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I mean, think about it from your point of view as a player, right? If you're at a place where the TO is like one of the top players in the tournament, like you feel a little bit more. At least I feel a little bit more motivated to play in it. I
Yeah.
mean, not saying that I wouldn't if it's not that way, but I'm just saying that like it's good to have somebody that understands the game,
Mm.
at least at a certain level.
Well, because that's the thing. Because in terms of the New York situation and sort of reviving This Is Third Strike and starting 3S Fight Club and starting to go to majors, you're right. It definitely helped that we had. I guess the word I'm looking at, I'm thinking about is cred, right? It like me and Nika KO, we had cred already to at least to some people, right? Enough cred
Yeah, I
to
mean,
kind of go,
yeah,
hey,
absolutely.
we're doing this stuff, people are gonna follow. But then I look at it like, what about the person who just who isn't very good but just loves Third Strike and they want to create a scene in their neighborhood, in their location. Oh, shout outs to Jerry. That's Jerry in the video.
Yep,
Shout
Jerry.
outs to
Yep.
Jerry.
Yep. I haven't
Jerry,
seen him in
let's
forever,
go.
man. This must be from what, 2013
Yeah,
or something?
shout outs to Jerry.
What year is this?
Yeah,
Uh,
2014. Yeah, but
yeah.
you know, like what about that person, right? Like the I guess I don't want to use this phrase, but I can't think of a better phrase. But the no name, the nobody that just that wants to start a third strike scene, and obviously the first thing they're gonna do is look for other people who play third strike.
Of course.
They're gonna look for the resources where third strike players are, and this is why I keep going back to the black posts because what if that player sees 3S junkies, and what happens, right? Like, and so how do we help those players, aside from just encouragement and if especially the player who doesn't, has no tournament experience, just wants to start a third strike scene in their in their neck of the woods.
Well,
What can.
first and foremost,
Mhm,
I think, and I mean, this is quite obvious for everybody watching the stream here,
mhm,
but I mean, I think it's absolute 100% truth. This sort of stream is actually going to help that quite a bit. What you're doing here is exactly what people need to see to get that confidence if they don't have it, or help them. That little push I talked about earlier,
mhm.
that this might be it. I mean, this is the start to all of it, I think. And I think that some sort of forum or some sort of place where people can ask questions and not feel like they're being attacked. Even if it's like, you're gonna have that everywhere. You're gonna have people asking questions and say, "Oh, by the way, just Google it," right? Most people will say
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
But some of the information is so like, some of the stuff that's like really, really high level is not really out there. Like, I think when I talked to Yuki a few years back, he's like, some of the tech is just not out there unless you understand Japanese and read it regularly. Um, you're not going to be exposed to that highest level of tech unless somebody's sharing it,
Hmm.
and it's really important to be in the mix of that sort of a thing. And so it's I don't know, it's I think this sort of stream is good, a positive environment for people to kind of ask questions and not be like Google it. If it's something obvious that can be Googled, just throw them a link in the post or something. Just you don't have to, or just don't say anything at all negative. Just ignore it. I mean, if you're going to be a negative person about it, just don't say anything. Just stay quiet and let somebody else, and if nobody else says it, then hopefully you'll feel good enough, to, or responsible enough to say something and try to point them in the right direction. But I know for a fact that what worked for online side of it, we were
Hmm.
talking about the offline and online. I visited Arcadium. Basically, it's a stream run by Serg Carl Wickman, who does ST, right?
Hmm.
And I frequented his stream. I think it was 2013, end of 13ish, somewhere around there, maybe mid 13. And I was just searching Twitch and I'm like, oh, I wonder if there's any ST streams. Sure enough, there was. This guy has this funny accent. I'm like, this is kind of funny. So you have somebody who's like the face of it, right? Who's got this funny accent, kind of, charismatic. He's able to bring people in. And people that like, El Trouble and Miller, they all trained on his stream. Like when they were new to the game, they trained on his stream.
Hmm.
And what he did was, the thing is, he had a lot of exposure. Like he basically streamed like several, like 5, 6 days a week, every day, and it was very, very inclusive, very, very funny about how he handled things, very, very high technical knowledge about how he runs his streams and how to fit people in. He was good about making people feel welcome so that people wouldn't feel shunned, when they came in and got, say bodied by like a player that's like, top five or something in the US,
Hmm.
that would happen to be on Arcadium stream at the time. And he's still throwing Monday night tournaments to this day. And everybody that I met, like through the ST scene, is actually through Arcadium stream, believe it or not. Really, like what he did when he was able to stream more often was the start of all of what's happening now for ST. Him and Karopi's throwing, Evo presence, of course, Evo presence on the main stage, Tournament of Legends. The combination of a stream that's very active like that brings people in, plus the tournament, or the showing of ST. I think we had like 80 something people for ST in 2013 for Tournament Legends. It was like 86 or 87, something like that. It was a lot of people, and just that sort of connectivity. Like as soon as I, met people online through his stream, when I went to Evo, I didn't feel like I was, even though I have plenty of tournament experience, I didn't feel as nervous. I feel like, okay, I can put a face to these people's names. I can talk to these people. They're really cool, and they're very welcoming, and I can ask them questions, and they're very responsive, and all of these people connected on Surg Stream, and the Evo hype was hyped up through Surg Stream. So
Mm.
really, like, shout outs to Arcadium. Still, in my opinion, favorite stream of all time, hands down. I'm gonna hold that, as far as that goes, because that's in my opinion, he did it. He was the magical recipe for ST. And if people ask, what can Third Strike do that ST, or what is Third Strike doing not, or 3ST not doing what ST is doing? Well, you need that person like Arcadium to step up and run like daily streams almost, or at least several a week, at least 3 or 4 a week.
And it doesn't matter
And
what level Third Strike it is. Is that what you're
no,
saying?
no, these
Just
guys
stream
playing
Third
ST,
Strike. It doesn't matter what it is.
yeah, like his stream had all levels of players. You had people that were mashing buttons on his tournaments. You had people that were freaking doing option selects that were like
But that's the
Japanese
thing.
level.
But that's the thing. There are some players that A don't like that, and then B can't help themselves to say that they don't like it. You
Right,
know what I mean?
right. I mean, and the thing is,
And so,
you
how did
can't like
Arcadium deal with that? I mean, I'm sure there were people on the stream going, "Wow, that was really scrubby," or "Wow, that was really dumb," or "Wow, like this is the worst ST I've seen ever." Like, how did Arcadium handle that? Do you know? Or
Well, what's funny about it was that when somebody got too vulgar, of course they would get timed out by one of the channel, I don't know, admins or whatever,
mm-hmm,
or moderators, whatever you want to call it in Twitch. I forget it's called admin, I guess.
mm-hmm,
The thing is, though, in general, he just doesn't choose to give that attention. Like, he has such a light attitude about everything, that like when somebody's like actually like putting hate on somebody in his stream,
mm-hmm,
he's like, okay, guys, okay, and he like, he's like, let's move on to the next match, and you guys figure it out. Just kind of like a just stop it, we're moving on sort of thing. But he doesn't like really ban people or anything like that. He's not really cutthroat like I am,
mm-hmm,
where I just cut people out as soon as they start insulting my players. It's just I don't stand for that. But he's a little bit more lenient.
mm-hmm.
But his method works too. But the fact is that he, again, the key for him is that he's the type of guy that you want to meet, you want to hang out with, and being the forefront of that stream is very important. Having somebody like that as the forefront of the stream is very important. And the fact that he was, of course, location also helped too.
Mm-hmm.
Being in LA and top players and ST over being there already, he had a plethora of really good players that were able to play on his stream. And then when other people came to visit, like, you'd have people that were, like, that we didn't even know that would actually fly out to LA and play on his stream,
Mm-hmm.
on the actual, on the cam, and play and whatnot. So he was very welcoming. He would invite people into his home and whatnot. And I think that his, even though the trolls were on his stream here and there, and his bot is the troll coin bot after all, which is kind of funny, but
Uh-huh.
his attitude of the whole thing is very positive. You know what I mean? And the people in general that are the top players that are very, very good on there, um, they're not critical in a negative way. They're critical in a constructive way. So it's I think that people should look to his stream as an example to what to do for Third Strike, for the online presence.
So we
Online presence.
so we need a 3S version of Arcadium to
Yes,
kind of come
absolutely.
up and and
Hmm.
and stream Third Strike regardless of what level. But the key word, I think, Haas, is consistency, right? It has to be consistent, right?
Consistent,
There has
and,
to
and
be
not just that.
someone who's who has, whose circumstances are just right so that they can actually stream Third Strike. And when we think about it, right, it's really not that hard. I mean, in terms of streaming like a Fightcade Third Strike, it's just a
No, it's
window capture and then just kind of leaving it alone, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. But but the thing is, right? Like, do you remember the Rennick video on GGPO? One of my all-time favorite videos that Rennick ever did. Do you remember that video?
it depends on which one you're talking about. I'm not
Well,
sure.
basically, Rennick made this video, like making fun of Third Strike on GGPO. And this was like almost 10 years ago. And that kind of sort of set the tone in terms of online Third Strike, because the online Third Strike experience has gotten a bad rap. I know we touched on this a little bit, right? Earlier in the podcast, and but it's gotten a bit, it's gotten a bit of a bad rap, right? So what do we do about that in terms of people not getting behind online Third Strike, whether it's on XBL or Fightcade or
When you say not getting behind it, are you talking about like they're stuck in the ways of only playing on cab but never playing online? Is that what you're saying, or are you talking about something different?
Well, it's just that there's just this perception among a lot of Third Strike players that online Third Strike is like fake Third Strike, or it's not real Third Strike, or it's not
Right.
the game that you know. And I'm even, I'll admit I'm even guilty of making those comparisons too, because like when I play online Third Strike, like even the slightest hiccups, right, it
Right.
just throws you off, and so how do we just is it just gonna be is it just gonna take us going, you know what, it is what it is, at least they're touching the game, is that what it's gonna take?
That's what it comes down to, man. And the thing is, for me, like I don't mind if I'm playing on a cab and I just get destroyed or something, right? I'm cool with it. Like, I mean, of course I'm upset about it, but like I don't get like angry as if like somebody's like lag switching like in a fighting game. That's really like
Is
gets
that
underneath my
real?
skin big time. It used to be, at least. I know they used to do it for HDR quite a bit on Xbox, but I don't know if that's a thing anymore. But basically, it's just flooding packet or flooding a port, with an actual hardware switch. It's not that hard to make, really. But anyways, yeah. The thing is, for me, I think that I understand what a cab feels like,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand that online is not like a cab. But the way you have to look at it is this: like, okay, there's a situational stuff that can still be learned.
Mm-hmm.
You can still learn spacing and certain like certain counter pokes and punishes at distances and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that you can learn. There's an intricate stuff that won't work out well with a laggy connection, like red parries and stuff like that. Like forget like connecting to somebody like out of the country and trying to red parry shit. I mean, you could try, but I mean, you're gonna have a hell of a time. Like for instance, last night I was playing against my buddy Kiji. He's one of the top French third strike players. He trains with Gunfight, and he's like easily top probably five in France, maybe top six in third strike in France. He's coming down with Neobon next year actually, to TFC actually,
Or
so you
this
get to meet
year?
him next year.
This
Yeah,
year?
or this year, yeah, this year. So yeah, he'll be coming down with Neobon and those guys. And he'll be joining that group of the French players at TFC
Mm-hmm.
this year. So, anyways, yeah, he's really really good, and I play him online, but I still feel like I level up against him
Mm-hmm.
because even though there's stuff that I can't do, like certain parries I can't do, like when you get to like a like you have to parry like Urian's like Aegis, and you have to parry like down twice or whatever, get out of it or whatever. Like there's times where I miss it because it's online, but I still don't feel like I'm not improving because he's such a good player. You know what I mean? So there's enough. I mean, you can't unless you're like at top Japanese level where like the intricacies are the most important thing at the highest level. If you're nobody's that good. I mean, maybe a few here in the U.S., but that's about it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, a few of you guys have shown good numbers at Co-op Cup. But the thing is, like, if you're just trying to learn the game, you can't just write off online. You can't say, oh, it's online, so I'm not going to play it. If you really haven't given it a shot to kind of at least understand how to do the fundamental things in the game or do the simple things, simple regular parries, parry fireballs, uppercuts, stuff like that. There's still a lot to be learned, even in a laggy or not laggy environment, but like a latent environment that has, let's say, 100 latency or higher. There's
Mm-hmm.
things that you can do as well, but there's also things that you can still learn. Is my point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something to write off. Let's put it that way. It's not something to write off at all. I mean, look at the numbers. Like, look at even though FightCade runs worse than GDPO did when it was out. Look at the numbers. Look at the people playing on there.
Most
There's a
people
lot of
play
hate
Third
in there.
Strike, right? But
Yeah, there's a ton. Third Strike Room is like second to like the KOF rooms, I
yeah,
think, right?
yeah.
So really, I mean, that's a big showing. So I mean, people are still enjoying the game. It's just that the Fight Kid chat is very negative and stuff like that. If it's a shame you don't have to post. It's a shame you can't
I
be
mean, that's a
posting.
whole nother. That's a whole nother. I had this idea that I want to try to get a Fightcade player on the podcast, someone who has never played offline Third Strike in their life. And I don't even have to show their face. It'll be like a Mr. Claw thing from Inspector Gadget.
Yeah.
We'll mask their voice and we'll mask their face. Type thing. I've always
Just
wanted
deep
to
in the
get.
voice or something.
Yeah,
Run
right.
through the filter.
Protect your
No, I mean,
identity for.
there's a thing though. I mean, like with online, there are some people that don't have the luxury. Let's say they're out in the middle of nowhere. Let's say they're
Uh-huh.
in a country where Third Strike, there's no other Third Strike players near them that have a good ping.
Hmm.
And they're forced to play like somebody, let's say somewhere else in a different country, and the minimum ping they can get is like 180 or 200.
Hmm.
Well, if it's their only method of playing and it's their best practice, then they can still learn from that.
Mhm.
You can always find players close to you. I mean, in Texas, I mean, there's plenty. You get Rico and everybody else. Even Colton connects
Mhm.
well in Fight Kid. I think when he first moved up there in the Northeast, we still played decent speed matches. It was
Mhm.
Rico, everybody else from Austin. We all connect fine if we were to play online. I know that a lot of the UFO players are becoming more flexible to play on anything but arcade cab, so that's a
Mhm.
good thing.
Mhm.
But I know Showdown's going to be on Super Gun, so they're super excited about that as well. But
Mhm.
I mean, you just, I mean, some of the best ST players. Oh, here's a good example. Going back to ST, which is just for comparison purposes, you have a lot of players like C Vital, for instance, like one of
Mhm.
the best players in ST that took out Choi, Watson, and Valle, and the same OC beat all three of them. He was an online warrior, man. He didn't even play on cab back in the day. He learned on HDR for crying out loud, and then had to revert back to ST. What does that say about him? You know, I mean, he's able to do it, and that's ST for God's sakes, dude. ST is much less forgiving in lag, much less forgiving.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, dude, you miss a block or you miss an uppercut, a reversal uppercut. You're taking forty
But
percent
but in
damage.
terms but in terms of but in terms of playability, you think Dirt Strike is more playable online in Fightcade than ST?
The word playable kind of it depends. Yeah, I mean it's I don't know. It's a toss up, I guess. I mean, I feel that like I have more outs than Third Strike. So if I'm
Uh huh.
playing in lag, I have more outs than Third Strike, right?
Mhm.
In ST, if I'm playing a laggy match, fuck that. It's like so hard to do anything. Like there's a lot of intricate one frame links in that game that you can't even imagine doing in laggy situations.
Okay.
So like it just depends. It depends on which character you're playing, I guess.
Mhm.
If you're playing like Fei Long, and Cammy, for instance, she's a great Fei Long player, able to play online and still do combos. But when I see her drop combos, I know it's because of lag, because I know that her execution's like top notch.
Mhm.
So I mean, and you have people like look at the ST Room and Fike. Those guys, some of those guys are the top players in the U.S. Some of them are the very, very toppest, highest players,
Mhm.
or not the highest, but like up there,
Mhm.
top 20, top 15, and they'll play on there. They don't have a problem with it, and they get by with it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just really personal preference.
Yeah.
If you're not cool with it, fine, but you're just gonna hold yourself back if you have another outlet to play in,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So
I just had a really, well, I don't know if you're gonna think it's a neat idea, but Kang Exodus, if you're listening, I just came up with a really neat idea on how to be inclusive to the Fightcade players at TFC this year. You should set aside a 1 hour time slot, assemble an offline team of players that are actually there at TFC, find a computer, and play the best online Fightcade players and stream it during TFC. I think that would be at the very least it would be pretty entertaining or fun to watch, or at least read the chat during that. It can be like an exhibition, right? That'd be pretty cool. So anyway, Haas, we're sort of running out of time a little bit here, so we're gonna
okay,
have to move on a little bit. And so let's talk a little bit about Texas Showdown. Once again, I just wanted to sort of give the information on Texas Showdown real quick. So Texas Showdown is set to take place May 5th through 7th.
hmm
Uh, and unfortunately, it'll be the same weekend as HSF3, which is the big French tournament that Rikamaru is going to. And so, for anyone who's thinking about going to Showdown, but that are sort of on the fence, what would you want to say to those people, Haas, in
come
terms
out.
of
Come out because we're gonna party together, all of us. I guarantee you. You come out and we hang out together. We're gonna have a good time,
Mhm.
and we're gonna, like I said, very welcoming. I mean, look at what Katie did last year with the Salty Suite, and Nero helping out, and all the Houston guys making it happen together. And those guys, I mean, not to go on and on about it, but like they got dicked over, man, straight up by the hotel, and they still made it happen. They put money out of their own pockets to make it happen,
Mhm.
and that's what I'm talking about. That's sort of leadership is what needs to happen. And I think that with that sort of foundational leadership, people shouldn't feel like, unless it's like a money issue, they
Mhm.
should feel no qualms with, or just they should definitely come out,
Mhm.
no matter what. And I guarantee you, we'll have a good time. We'll get to shake hands and chit chat and bullshit and stuff like that. It'll be good times. Like
And,
it's gonna be the best Texas Showdown yet. Like I guarantee you, this year will be the top year, the
mhm.
best one they've ever had. And Javier thinks so too, and he's the TO.
And so looking forward as well, Haas. We had already sort of mentioned TFC in passing. But obviously, for those of you who are uninitiated, TFC stands for the Fall Classic, which is a joint venture between Big E, who runs obviously the Big E Gaming Majors, and Shin Blanca, who runs Final Round. And usually TFC happens around October. And I think, and I don't know if this was obviously not intended, but I think one of the most productive, positive things to come out of the 3S community in the last 5 years was TFC, and not the event itself, but for some reason after TFC, I guess because of what went down there and all of the drama leading up, it seems as though for some reason everyone just kind of organically agreed, hey, TFC is that annual Third Strike event in America. So that's a good thing, right, Haas?
Yeah,
But is
yeah,
there
absolutely.
is having that annual event, do you think that's enough to sustain a scene like Third Strike or grow a scene like Third Strike, or do you think there needs to be something else in place to kind of you know?
It wouldn't hurt to have more,
Mm-hmm.
like have like something on the east, have something central, have something, in the west, and have them all be like maybe like every 4 months there's a major
Because
that's
it's
not
it's
like
not everyone can travel, right? Not everyone has the means, and not everyone has the you know. And so, last question for you, Hoss. So, uh, did you read that article that came out on SRK a few months ago? That was talking about how people can resurrect old school games. Did you ever read that article?
I didn't see the article actually.
Yeah.
No, what did it say
Well,
exactly?
one of the pieces of advice that was in that article was that old school games can run their own, sort of national circuits, right? Like the prime example would be, MVC3, you know, even though Marvel 3 isn't necessarily an old game, but obviously, it's experiencing quite a resurgence because of the curly circuit, which I'm sure
Right.
you're aware of.
Absolutely.
Um, how how feasible do you think a third strike circuit would be in America? Like just I know I'm just sort of putting you on the spot here, and I apologize for that, but
No,
how
no.
would you? Is that something you've ever thought of before in terms of like oh, it'd be really cool if America or North America or United States had like a third strike circuit, because we already have a central event in place, right? TFC, and so I mean, if how would a circuit work in your mind for third strike?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, I think that we can follow your lead because obviously what y'all did worked awesomely, first and foremost. And I think that I felt like,
What
you know, you missed
what
out.
in terms of TFC?
Yes,
Well, no, I
there's
didn't
a,
run. I didn't run TFC. I didn't. That was all
but either
Exodus
way,
and Kang. So I don't want to
but
take credit for things I didn't do. So
but everybody that showed up that made the
yeah.
scene that made it fun, fun to watch. Everybody that was there, it
Uh-huh,
was it was basically like that was one of the first times where I was like, you know what, man, like I feel like I'm missing out.
uh-huh,
You know what I mean? Like it was so much fun to watch that I felt like, damn it, I should have gone. And that when people start saying that or thinking that, that it's a working recipe, right?
uh-huh.
So it's like I think that I mean, what do you mean like how I would operate? Like what do you mean by like how it would work?
Like
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 just
like 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 how would you? I mean, it's okay if you don't have any thoughts on that, but as far as a national circuit, right? Like there would be events year round. Someone would keep points and stuff like that. Kind of like what the curly circuit does. And I guess I was just wondering, could the Third Strike community come together and put something like that together?
I think so. I think so. I don't think anything's impossible. I think
Mm-hmm.
that with the I think things are heading in the right direction. I think podcasts like this, you got TFC, you got more people showing up for Co-op Cup, right? More of a showing from a USA more than ever in Co-op Cup. You got all these great things happening simultaneously. To me, it's like the start of something better, in my opinion. I think it's going to go nowhere but in a good direction from here,
Mm-hmm.
just based off of the pattern that's been shown. If it's this good already, it's going to get better if people keep pushing. And I think that, you know, um, people seem to be very motivated. And I know that, we talked about the negativity and stuff like that, and that's a whole different, that ties into this too. But I think that if there's enough good stuff going out there to overcome all that crap,
Mm-hmm.
people won't even think about that crap anymore. They'll just worry about getting out to the tournaments, playing, getting better, looking, watching the examples that are put forth in front of all of us,
Mm-hmm.
and try to lead their own scene by those examples. And if it doesn't work out, then maybe adjust that formula and make it work to your scene's
Mm-hmm.
likings, or your region's likings. So, like, I guess a lot of it would have to do with location, right? Like, would people want to travel to Austin for a central U.S. thing? I think that's a good idea because UFO has the Japanese two candy cabs. Well, one of them is not working right now, but like when they both work, you have two, versus cities. You've got, Fubar, which is willing to move the machines around to make it more comfortable for like a tournament situation if it comes to that. Um, and just, I mean, it's like in the dead center, so it's not the worst place to go. And plus, there's history there. I mean, we talked about the history already, and we can tell more stories that we don't have time to tell on this stream, and people laugh about them. And there's a bunch of stupid shit that went on too that's hilarious too that I could go into, but that's a whole nother hour of talking. So I mean, it's just, Slim X would probably touch base on stuff that I missed if you get him on here. But honestly, I think Slim, I have to, yeah, I think that if I were to like talk to to Rico and then the rest of the guys that are leading the UFO thing right now, I think we'd have to all get together and think what would be best. And I think that honestly, I think that UFO guys are doing a great job.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good foundation for, or a good like location and foundation for like where people could come to train. Those guys have proved themselves to be good enough to be worthy of of top level. And so I think if more people come down and experience that, I've talked about this a million times on my stream, and I think that like being exposed. Okay, so the good thing about multiple circuits, or a circuit that has multiple locations or regions and whatnot, the good thing about it is that you're not just exposed to, let's say, we've talked about this too, me and you, one character per se, but you're exposed to the same character from different players. And so basically you're adjusting to different mentalities, different types of thought processes, and play styles of that character based off of if the person is a naturally aggressive person or like a passive person or whatever else, that can reflect in their gameplay. And you can basically find out, you can learn how to play. You become a more well-rounded player by traveling and losing to these players, or competing against these players to better yourself as a player. And if you really take third strike seriously and you really want to level up to that level, I think that circuits would be not out of the question. It would be definitely something that would be good. And I think that I know Austin is capable of doing it for Central US. I know for a fact they are. So I'm not even worried about that. So if you guys decide that that's something you all want to do, I know that Rico has always said he's on board. I know, and Rico is the one that talks to Fubar and stuff directly and stuff about these things. So I know Rico's the one that's in charge now, and I know that he has always been up for it. I know that he's on board. I know that everybody in Austin's on board with that. I don't think anybody would be against it, and I would be down for it too. I'd be down to help or do whatever I need to do to make it happen too. So I know KD, of course, he came up to Austin I think the last tournament or two that we
Mm-hmm.
had, or the one before that,
Mm-hmm.
and the Houston guys have come up a lot, and so I mean they would, I know they'd be down with it too. I mean, it's just a lot of good stuff. I think that yeah. So he says, Katie said that's part of why I want to do a pre-co-op style, and that's a great idea. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic idea.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So I mean, I think I don't know if I answered your question. I maybe blabbed a little bit on about different things and kind of
No,
connected them,
that's all right. No, you did. You
but
did.
I think that all it takes is, I guess, an agreement from different regions on the plan. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just decide on it and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and then we expect you to adhere to this standard. But
Mm-hmm.
I know that I'm pretty sure I can speak for everybody at UFO that they're willing with open arms, and I can say for sure, based off of what Katie's doing for Houston, that they're going to be willing with open arms as well.
Mm-hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I'm pretty sure I'm dead on about it. So the
Um.
thing is, like, we're on board, period. So if you guys do it in the East, you can count Central US as well. I know that Omega Urians is right next door to us, and I know Josh Bell is right next door to us as well. Those guys are Third Strike loving players. They'd be down to come and travel for sure. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for the West Coast because I don't know too many players over there. So it's lack of communication. I guess I don't know many people on the West,
Mm-hmm.
so I can't speak for them. But I'm sure there's plenty of players on the West Coast that'd be happy to do that too. I mean, honestly, and I think that with more activity and more doing than talking, with like negative talking and stuff, it'll overcome all the negativity
Hmm.
naturally. You know, it's like it's like when you're so busy at work, and there's like a bunch of crap going on that's gone wrong, but you're so busy you don't have time to worry about it. Same sort of
Yeah.
things, sort of mentality. So
So, speaking of things that have gone wrong, sorry, I can't find a better segue. But we're coming towards the end of the show, and I'd hate to take all this positive energy that you've been, outputting, Haas, and just kind of smash it now. But it's the end of the show, or it's coming to the end of the show, and so unfortunately, that means that it's time for another edition of Pack It Up. um, Now, I've defended this segment, Haas.
okay.
I definitely think that this segment is helping. It's getting harder and harder for me to find, bad third strike online. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough, but no one wants to be on Pack It Up, so I think I'm doing a service.
See, I'm a little bit worried here because I do a bunch of stupid shit
No, no,
online.
you're not. You're not in. You're not in it. I
Okay,
would never.
because
I would
I
never.
am
I would never put a guest on Pack It Up.
because
Well, no, maybe some guests I might put on Pack It Up, but not you, Haas. I would never put you on Pack
but
It
I'm
Up.
just saying I've done stupid shit, so I wouldn't be
Well, we've
surprised
all
if I
done
was
stupid shit. I'm pretty sure at some point I'm gonna have to put out, a mutant only version of Pack It Up, just to show that I'm not biased or anything. But anyway, so for those of you who are new to the stream, uh, every week what I do is I scour the internet for some of the more unique examples of Dirt Strike gameplay, some lowlights, highlights of lowlights, if you will. And so I pick out 5 nominees, and then at the end of it, I want everyone to tweet me and let me know what their favorite was. So, without further ado, here is this week's edition of Pack It Up. Are you ready, Haas?
Yeah, let's
Is
watch it.
everyone
Let's
on
check
the
it out.
stream ready? All right. Okay, let's get started. Pack it up. Nominee number 1, to steal a line from Charles Barkley. The operation was a success, but the patient died. Watch this Ken player try to avoid the Yagudama, but he doesn't quite get the jump arc right.
No, no.
Nominee number 2. So basically, the only thing this Alex player had to do was block. But apparently Makoto is too powerful. Nominee number 3. This Ryu player must know some tech that I don't, because it's clear that he thought he was gonna run right through that fireball.
Wow.
I don't know. Might have been an input error. Who knows?
Yeah,
You never know
have
with
that
online.
one photo.
You never know with online third strike. Nominee number 4. You know what? It's really hard to miss backbreaker.
Holy.
Once. It's nearly impossible to miss it twice. But he can't miss it a third time.
3 different arcs. Those are the 3 possible worst timings. Oh, I love it. I love it.
And,
Fantastic.
and nominee number 5. This was actually a submission, our first ever fan submission. This was from a recent PSN Ranbat. And, what can you say, right? This is one of the, this is either one of the best perfects I've ever seen or the worst perfects. But clearly this Dudley player had an aversion to blocking low. Either that or his stick was broken. So, pick your favorite. Nominees 1 through 5. Let me know on Twitter which one you think was the winner for this week. What do you think, Haas?
I think I like the Hugo one the best. Number 4 is my favorite, probably, but I stand by the Alex one because there's so many times I want to kick Makoto in the face, and I feel that she deserves it, and I can't help but be impartial to number 2, but I think the Hugo one's my favorite, clearly, number 4.
Yeah, I mean I've missed that before, but it's really hard, especially in close range, right? Like, how do you?
It's and the thing is, every single timing was if you tried to miss it on purpose, I don't think you could. If you
Mm-hmm.
tried to 3 times in a row, I don't think it's possible. Like if you, yeah, like if you're intentionally trying to drop it to show that, like, recreate what happened there,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure you wouldn't drop
Mm-hmm.
it.
So, uh, well, unfortunately, that's all the. Well, it's not really all the time we have, but I don't want this podcast to hit the 3 hour mark. Not that I haven't enjoyed my time with you tonight, Haas. It's been super real, super cool. You know, if I decide to do these podcasts again, you're definitely coming back. You're
Appreciate it,
definitely
man. Thank
welcome
you.
to come back. I want to thank you, for all the things that you're doing in terms of supporting both ST and Third Strike in Texas, both Houston and Austin. And so remember, guys, Haas will be at Texas Showdown. Sorry. Haas will be at Texas Showdown. Remember, Texas Showdown takes place May 5th through 7th. Haas will be there playing ST and Third Strike. He's definitely if you haven't made plans to go, definitely book your hotel, book your flight. Third Strike and ST are going to be there on Super Guns, and obviously all the other things that Texas has to offer. And so before we go, I just wanted to let everyone know that you've been watching the Mutant Experience podcast every Thursday. I have a different guest. Remember that I run the podcast to give Third Strike players a platform to promote themselves, their scenes, and their events. Shoutouts to the West Coast, Boiler Room, keeping it down. Also, shoutouts to the Gutter Trash kids over in London, Third Strike, Violent City. That's kind of where they hang out. And so definitely check them out. This weekend, Michigan Masters 2017, April 1st, 2nd. They're going to have some old man games there as well. The Poverty Game Night guys are going to be holding it down there. Later next month, Hype Spotting 6 in Glasgow, Scotland. Arcade Third Strike will be there as well, Haas. I mean, this Arcade Third Strike, a lot of it's, showing up everywhere. Of course, Showdown, May 5th through 7th. And it's going to be held the same weekend, unfortunately, as the French tournament over in France, Hado Street Fighter with Rikamaru. But hopefully, you guys will be able to catch both streams. And then, last but not least, Combo Breaker, May 26th to May 28th. Have you ever been to Combo Breaker, Haas?
I have not
You
actually.
know,
My buddies have.
uh huh,
My buddies that play KI very seriously here in Houston, actually, they travel there every year. Actually, as a matter of fact, and they a buddy of mine, Charlie Boy, from he lives over in the east side of Houston.
uh huh,
He's probably Texas' best orchid, and he competes in all the KI stuff. And
yeah,
I know that that's one of the major games there. I think, obviously,
uh huh.
if I remember correctly, right? Combo Breaker is a KI event as well. It has
Yeah, I mean,
KI.
it's a major. They have all the major games, but
Okay.
to me, what they've done for the old man games and the poverty scene has been amazing
Yes.
too.
Yes. Yes.
And
I've
so,
caught the. Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. Um.
I know there's going to be a big ST tournament at Combo Breaker. They're going to give away a custom cab there. Um, Third Strike has not been confirmed, but obviously, I had Bathtub Leviathan, aka Brian, on a podcast before, on episode 6, I believe. And so, before we go, I just wanted to let everyone know that next week, we're going to be we're going to have another Mutant XP podcast, and next week, I'm scheduled to have one of the stronger players that have come out from France, Paris, that now currently lives in Japan, and that player is Yaz, YAZ, Yaz. I don't know if anyone's familiar with him. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Haas, but he's been showing up in a lot of the Game Versus and Game Newton streams.
Hmm.
Strong Chun Li player. He's gonna be at HFS as well. Scheduled to have him on the show next week, so that's gonna be a great show. Hopefully, you guys tune in for that. But thank you again, Haas, for coming on
Oh,
the
no problem.
show. It's been really great. I mean, if I don't end this
Thank,
now, we
thank you
could
for having me.
probably talk for like 5 hours.
Yeah, yeah. I
you
can go
know?
on. You can ask anybody from Austin. I can go on for hours
Yeah.
for sure. And I want to apologize real fast though to Bathtub Leviathan. I wasn't trying to discount the Midwest. When I think of Central, I think of everybody like Midwest,
Uh-huh.
us. You know what I mean? Like it's always been for me from the old school days. It's always been Central U.S. and the West and East,
Uh-huh.
right? So that's forgive me if I discounted your y'all's hard work and stuff like that. Sorry about
hmm
that.
hmm But we'll definitely have you on again if you're willing to come on, Haas. So thanks again for coming on to the Mutant Experience. Thanks to
Thank you for
everyone.
having me.
Yeah, man, no problem. And thanks to everyone who joined us in the chat. And we'll see you next week with Yaz. See you guys later.
Awesome. Take care.